Alrighty, and we're on.
Cool.
How are you, Daniel?
Hello.
All right, so I'm here with Daniel Karjadi.
Karjadi, yes.
Yeah, okay. And we're sitting in his beautiful Benzin Cafe.
Up in Dural.
Up in Dural.
Sunny Dural. Well, not today.
Not today. So you and I, we met. So actually, is quite interesting. So you came to my dealership with Jason.
Yeah.
To help Jason do one of his projects.
Yes.
And so we met on that day, but then we actually realized that, hey, we obviously have some other connections. Mm-hmm. So obviously through the cafe side of things, there's Sam, the coffee
Gabriel.
man, from Gabriel Coffees. And then also, I think you guys also were doing a lot of work for Canterbury BMW as well? Or
Canterbury BMW, yeah.
And so Anthony Basil's obviously a friend of mine, and even though we were competitors at the time, we're still friends. And you were doing a lot of work for him, and so we were talking about obviously getting to do some work together as well at some point.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but I guess look, things didn't work out because I'm no longer at Macarthur BMW. But that said, I did want to catch up with you and have a bit of a chat because I thought I'm kind of interested in how you got yourself involved in all these things because you do videography
as the main thing, yeah.
Yeah, and then you got the cafe.
Yeah.
What else have you got?
I mean, thank God that's it.
Okay, all right, cool. Just in case, because sometimes I rattle off a couple of things and then suddenly this laundry list of things come out.
Does family count?
Oh, yeah, family definitely counts.
Actually, my wife does all the work, so I guess that doesn't count.
Okay, so let's sort of pull it all back. So Karjadi, is that an Indonesian surname?
Yes, I'm Indonesian, yeah.
Okay, and so were you born here or born?
No, I was born in Jakarta.
In Jakarta?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, so what age did you come over?
We came over 99, so I would have been 9 years old. Yeah.
Wow, 9 years old. So from that perspective, you actually probably would have quite a lot of memories of Indonesia then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already above 30 now, so I can't say that I lived there half my years anymore, kind of thing.
Yep.
But yeah, no, we had a lot of memories, a lot of experience. So kind of experienced the different way of upbringing on in a Southeast Asian country compared to Australia.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how would you describe that? And the reason why I say that is because I've been to Indonesia. So I went with my family as like a family holiday at some point. And
wait, what nationality are you?
So my dad grew up in Singapore, so he's Singaporean Chinese.
Right.
And then my mum is Malaysian Chinese.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So they met when they were studying in New Zealand of all places, and then ended up in Australia, and I was born here.
Yeah.
So I do remember going to Indonesia as a kid. Okay, I don't really know exactly what age I was, but I do remember. I found Jakarta to be like it was what's the right word for it? I
have no affiliation with Jakarta.
Okay.
Really. It's like, have at it.
Yeah, well, it was like, I don't know, it was gritty, right? Like, to me, it felt like a gritty place. Like, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way.
No.
I mean that in a way where, like, it's a city, right? So there's a lot of people, and at the same time, it's almost like people are working to survive, kind of a thing.
Oh, it's completely different to Sydney, right? It's for most people that. I mean, I'm lucky that I moved over at 9 years old. If you were to move over when you're a little bit older, you probably got a massive shock, and it's very hard to adjust in a way because Jakarta will be very similar to most Southeast Asian cities, like Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok, right? Very, very similar to a point where like there's no middle. The reason why they say there's never really any middle class is because when, like you said, you went in and you felt that it was very gritty. But when I was growing up, I felt like it was a palace. Like it was clean. Everything is just amazing.
Yep.
Right? That's because it's two different sides of Jakarta that never actually exposes each other. Do you know what I mean? Like it never really kind of blends.
So you either, so there's no real middle class. It's either you're on the wealthy side or you're on the poor
I wouldn't
side.
say just wealthy. It's just more like it's either you have a sheltered life or you just have a very real and exposed life to what reality is like in Indonesia. And that's very foreign to a lot of Western countries, right? It's just very hard to explain until you go there.
Yeah.
Where you see all of these kind of, I would say like, struggling poverty and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then you'll drive to places where there's these big houses with a massive gate and a big cement wall blocking them from the rest of the world kind of thing. So that's the whole feeling, right? So like when I was having an upbringing over there, I guess I was very sheltered.
Yeah.
everything was kind of like, you don't really experience the real Jakarta, or you don't really experience the real Indonesia kind of thing when you're growing up, especially as a Chinese Indonesian.
Yep.
That's a sheltered life is the best way to explain it. So I think moving to Australia is amazing. I think it's the best thing that's ever done, that's ever happened to me, because it just, I guess we kind of learn life experience ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, okay, just before we get to coming to Australia, so from that perspective...
That just makes it feel like an Eddie Murphy movie.
coming to Australia. Coming to America. Merry New Year.
I wasn't that tribal.
But, you know, so from a schooling perspective, you would have gone to primary school.
That's right, yeah.
Until about, what, year 4 or 5 or something?
Year 4, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I came in here and then it was year 4, yeah. So just the tail end of year 4.
Yep. So then... was that a bit of a shock from a schooling perspective as well? So what was schooling like in Indonesia?
Well, no, because...
Are you going to international school or something? Or?
No, it's not. Well, I did go... It wasn't necessarily international school. It was a local school that was private, I guess, and owned and run like an American school. Kind of thing. But in saying that, it's to what most people think, like it's to a shock to most people, is that I guess Australian curriculum is very behind. So when I came here, apart from the language English, everything was just easy because I learned it like a year and a half, 2 years ago. Okay. Kind of thing. So that comes down to like math, science, and all that kind of stuff. Everything was just very what I've learned. Yeah. Apart from English. Yeah. But I already knew English, but I just couldn't speak it. So I had to learn how to speak kind of on the fly. Okay. Like I had grammar, I have basics and all that kind of stuff. I know what words are. I can listen, I can understand. But when it came to talking, it was kind of like, you know, I had to learn on the fly. Yeah. And so was the language of instruction in Bahasa? Bahasa, yeah. But because I went to some of an international school, you get it. It's not like you get a choice, but you learn both English and Bahasa. Yeah. I speak Bahasa when I was at home and to my friends in school. Yep. But the biggest problem in Indonesia, especially with Chinese Indonesian living in Jakarta, is that you never really use the language Bahasa. You use a slang derivative or something, or some form that comes out of living in Jakarta, which is a mixture of Bahasa, Hokkien, Cantonese, Mandarin, English, all into one, right? Yep. And some words are just not even a language. It's just because it's convenient for us to say. Yeah. So I was also kind of like part of that generation where like we were in between two languages. Yeah. Like we learn English but don't really use it. Yeah. We learn Bahasa but don't really like to learn it. Yeah. And then we use something else. Yeah, okay. So I guess the Malaysian and Singaporean term for that is rojak, right? Like, it's like eating rojak. So rojak is like so there's different styles of rojak. So there's a style where it's like a fruit-based where you have like pineapple and peanuts and bean sprouts, and there's that style. And then there's another style which is like a darker sauce style. But essentially, like, you're mixing all these things that you don't necessarily think should go together, but it ends up tasting good. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, and again, in Singapore culture is probably the best way to explain it to most people because it's a bit more exposed to the rest of the world. It's like, I guess Singapore's national language should be Mandarin, should be Chinese. There's 4 national languages. Well, I mean, like, the traditional national language should be Mandarin or Malay, right? Yeah. But international language is English. Yeah. So what happened when you combine, you know, Mandarin, Malay, and English, you get Singlish. Yeah. It's not really a language. Yeah. But it's just really explain it to people. Yeah, that's right. It's like a... And then if you say it, if you use it enough, you kind of almost forgot how to speak English altogether. Yeah. It's basically trying to find the most direct ways to communicate certain things. So whether it comes to, you know, if the name of something in Chinese is easier, use that name for that. Exactly. If the name is easier in Hokkien, use that name or use the Malay name. And that's exactly what people in Jakarta do. Yeah. Right. Okay. Except instead of using English as a base, they use Bahasa as a base, and then they kind of customize everything on top kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So when it came time to move to Australia, so how did your parents, did they tell you anything, or they just sort of surprised you? I don't know if you guys know, but Jakarta went through a riot, and it was one of the biggest riot in the nation's history in 98. Due to a spike. Again, there's a lot of conspiracy theories, but the base of it is like due to share them because I remember the riots, but I don't remember what. Yeah, it was just due to unemployment rates. Okay, unemployment rates in Jakarta went up. Like, I don't really know the details. I don't really look, like I was still young, and even now when I used to kind of be interested in looking the history of it, I didn't really read too much into it. Yeah. But the base of it was in unemployment rates went up sky high. There's massive corruption in the country with the current president that was in power.
Yep.
And it started with a very friendly protest. Again, this is very much like what's happening in the world right now. It started with a very friendly protest by a bunch of students that want to do good in the world.
Yep.
University students.
Yep.
So it's very kind of innocent.
Yep.
They used, some of the bad people used that as, I guess, a way to have their own agenda.
Yeah. Okay.
So they use that as a reason to go out and protest about something else, or
Yep.
just throw a riot, again, like what you guys have been seeing in America, right? The people doing it might not have the actual original intent in mind. They
Yep.
just want to have a riot.
Yeah.
And there's other stuff to it, but at the end of the day, from the perspective of the Chinese Indonesian, the Chinese Indonesian did become a scapegoat.
Yep.
They became the scapegoat of a target for unemployment rate, as in, it's not fair that you guys have all the wealth and the Indonesians didn't.
Yeah.
How that idea came about might have some valid points behind it, but how the idea came out, we don't know. It's just more kind of becoming a scapegoat. And the city was very hard. Like, there was, for a couple of days, it was, deaths, rapes, crime,
Yeah.
burning houses on fire, burning cars that were going to the airport to leave and all that kind of stuff. Even the Singaporean government sent planes to take Chinese Indonesians out of the country.
Yep.
To have refuge in Singapore for the time being. It got to that kind of escalation.
Yep.
Because of that, my parents didn't deem it to be safe to be living in the country.
Yep.
And that's why we moved here.
Yep.
So we actually spent probably months in Singapore, actually just kind of living in hotels and whatnot.
Yep.
To get everything sorted to kind of come back here.
Okay. So what were your parents doing in Indonesia? Because obviously, to spend time in Singapore and all that, and to come here takes money, right? What did they do
just
for
business.
Yep.
That's what most of the guys in Indonesia is, just a land of business.
Yep.
My dad was actually his background was in London, civil engineering.
Oh, wow.
So that was his background.
Yep.
But obviously, like, it's been a while since he studied.
Yep.
So when we came to Sydney, where it's a country that's very hard on, I guess, qualification, doing things the right way, doing this and this, the qualifications, I guess, might have been a bit too old. So he didn't go into the same
Civil
things that
engineering.
he was doing in Jakarta.
Yep.
Because it doesn't really, I guess, transfer.
Yep.
So that's how he got into other things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you guys went to Singapore, were you thinking, wow, like, my whole life's changing, or?
No, Singapore was already a second home to us. To a lot of Indonesian, actually, Singapore was just kind of a weekend getaway.
Yeah.
Most of them have houses in Singapore just as a weekend getaway. So I was already familiar with Singapore. Both my parents grew up in Singapore, so it was, and now they do live in Singapore. So
They actually moved back to Singapore.
So it's kind of just like, it's always been a second home.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember, like, so one of the times I did go to Indonesia, I think you can catch a ferry from Singapore to Bandung.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And that was one of the things that I think, really stood out for me. It was just that real, there's always like a hard line between the wealthy or the wealthier and the poor.
Yeah.
And like, I would have been maybe in my early 20s, I guess, back then, when I went that time. Because I remember seeing, because there was somebody taking us around, some of the locals taking us around. And we were driving down the street, and there was like obviously beggars on the street or whatever. But I remember seeing, like, these people with, like, where they were missing limbs.
Yeah.
And like there was, I remember seeing this guy who would, like, intentionally put his leg out onto the road to have people run over it. And I don't know what I'm guessing the mindset was like, well, if I'm
get money out of it.
To get money out of it, or if I'm more disabled, maybe people would take more pity on me.
Yeah.
But, like, it's like when you see that kind of stuff, it's pretty eye-opening, right? Like, it's just a very almost dystopian kind of a world.
It's a dark world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very similar to if anyone's been to Singapore, you just have to take a car, drive up the highway and go to Johor Bahru, which is like literally the next city over.
Yeah.
And you go through, I wouldn't say a tunnel, but you go through these toll gates, and then it's a weird feeling. If you don't stop at the toll gate, like if you actually get to drive through really quickly, it's like you're driving, everything's clean, there's flowers everywhere,
Yeah.
there's colors, you know.
Yeah.
It's the best city in the world, and
Yeah.
you drive through a toll gate and you come out and
It's gritty
dirt.
again. Yeah.
It's literally like, you know, it's to put it into like really like exaggerated term, it looks like Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Like it just looks like dirt.
Yeah.
With like beggars and dogs and wild dogs and everything. Like the roads unsealed. There's no pavement on the side. Like
Yeah.
it looks like that. It's kind of like, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like there's a big difference to it. Yeah.
Well, it's crazy because when you think about it from that perspective, like Singapore in terms of resources,
Yeah.
it's not a resource-rich place.
No.
Like it's a bloody city. Like it's
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
a postage stamp.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, they've built an economy based on a whole bunch of other things, whereas you know the surrounding countries, so Malaysia, Indonesia, have a lot of resources,
Yeah.
but they're just
Exploited.
exploited. Yeah,
That's where the money is though.
all the corruption is, you know, sort of takes it out of the system and doesn't
Yeah.
actually help to build the cities
country
and
up.
the country up.
Well, it doesn't build the people up as well.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's how you get rid of the middle class. I
True.
mean, you know, it's the fact that there's an exploitation
Yeah.
inside the country. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So coming to Australia, like, did your parents say, "Hey, we're going to move to Australia. We're not going to stay in Singapore"? Or
I don't really remember that
Okay.
kind of conversation, but I just remember us moving to Australia. I think for the first like 3-4 months, we were in a hotel in the city, a service apartment. I think that building's gone now. That building is now, what's it called? Central Park? Is that Central
oh,
Park?
Central Park. Okay.
The Central Park, right?
The one in
one
between-
across UTS?
Yeah.
So the building used to be there. And that was our first service apartment. All I remember is like meeting with the travel, like the immigration agent every
Yep.
now and then, just to kind of get sorted, to get school, everything, like
Yep.
visas and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So my first 3-4 months was nothing. You
Yep.
know, just playing around every day in the
Yep.
city and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So by the time I got to school, yeah, like the curriculum was like a little bit behind, but the time I got to school, like I haven't been to school in so long.
Yeah.
I just feel like your mind's all like,
Mush.
yeah,
Not ready for it.
no. Or it's more kind of like you tasted freedom.
So which school did you go to?
First, we went to Eastwood. So that was our first house. We went to Eastwood. I went to Eastwood Public.
Oh, you went to East Public. Okay.
Yeah, and then that was only renting though. So by the time we actually bought a house,
Yep.
I think I was only at Eastwood Public for a year,
Okay.
and then we went to Kellyville, and then I went to Kellyville Public.
Okay.
Yep.
And so, you know, how would, apart from the curriculum being a bit behind where you were, like, did you have any troubles because from a language perspective, or did you find that it was quite easy to learn how to pick up the language?
That's the thing. I've always thought about it. I just can't put it down. Like I don't really remember.
Yeah.
I just remember not really know how to speak English, but just know the language.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I'm here and I'm speaking, and
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things where I think it's just. When you get thrown in the deep, you just learn like a lot
absorb
faster, right?
Yeah.
You absorb everything because you have to. You can't speak your own
Yeah.
language.
Yep.
And then over time, it just became my main language. Like I speak English at home to my dad,
Yep.
and the only person I speak Indonesian to is my mum.
Okay.
And sometimes with my brother if I don't want anyone to know.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. But it's
yeah.
good that you still keep it though. Like you still
Trying.
retain it.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
Like when you don't practice it, but trying.
Yeah. Look, I find the same thing. So you know, my wife and I, we try and speak Mandarin to our kids.
Yeah.
Just so that you know they can try and we basically use it as their first language.
Right.
And then now Cadence is about to start school this year, so been trying to speak a lot more English to her to try and get her ready for that, because the last thing we want her to feel is not confident as she goes into school.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like I feel like with kids, different kids pick it up very differently. Like
Yeah.
my son can pick up languages really easily. Like
Yeah.
he just absorbs it and then he'll spit it back out.
Yeah.
Or he'll try. Like
Yeah.
he's not shy to try. Whereas I feel like, you know, Cadence is probably a little bit
Reserved.
reserved
Yeah.
in how she approaches it. But she was like, you know, her Chinese was really good at a
Right.
young age. But now, like, trying to transition her to English, it's difficult because
Yeah.
things that we take for granted, like the other day, I was just trying to teach her the difference between more and less,
Yeah.
right? We take that for granted every day. Like,
Yeah.
is there more here or less?
Yeah.
here? You know, and so I had to, like, you know, go and grab some cranberries and, like, make 2 piles and, like, which pile has more? And then, you know, almost like the reward system, you know, feed them one as they get it, right? So, anyway, we'll get into kids a bit later. But so, as a, you know, in primary school, like, what kind of kid? How would you describe yourself as?
Oh
what
man,
kind
that's
of kid
a
were
hard
you?
one.
Yeah.
I don't know. To be honest, I feel like I've always been just kind of like a whatever kind of person.
Yep.
Like I just take things as they go.
Yeah.
So if someone even asked me like, "Hey Daniel, you think you were bullied when you were in school?" To be honest, if I was, I wouldn't have even felt it. Like, because I don't really care.
You didn't notice it.
Like, I just had no care in my bone about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
So what-
I made friends pretty easily.
Yep.
You know, at the same time, I'm very, I wouldn't say picky, but I knew who I don't want to be around with.
Yep.
And maybe that's the nature of me, like not giving,
Yep.
I don't care if they don't like me or anything like that. I
Yep.
don't care if they think I'm different because
Yep.
I don't want to be around them anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how I was when I was a kid. I know I was a brat to my brother, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Second child syndrome.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know how I was at school.
So when you say you were a brat to him, was that more because he's older?
Yeah, he's older.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. For
What-
sure, I was spoiled more. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And so did you hold that over him?
No. I don't know. I just felt like I was a brat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Well, because I always think that as well, because my brother was 7 years older than me.
Right.
And for me, I feel like the emotion attached to that was I thought my brother was the coolest.
Yeah.
Right? Reality is my brother was a nerd, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, he was like, and I idolized him, right?
Yeah.
And being 7 years older, like the things that he was doing, when I'm 12 and he's 19, I want to do the things he's doing, right? Like that's the way it sort of works.
Yeah.
But you don't really take into account. Like I'm sure to him, I was just the annoying little brother.
Yeah, right.
It was probably a bit of a running joke with his friends because his friends would be, "Oh, your brother's cool, right?" But then, like for me, I'm just trying to be like my brother,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So, I always think, when you've got that older sibling, you almost, because you sort of assume that you should be able to do the things that they can do.
Yep.
Without thinking about, hey, they might be however many years older. They've also got that amount of experience, right? You just sort of look at that level difference and you go, I should be able to do those things too, right? And that's probably why second kids are usually more bratty from that perspective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're just the babies. So.
Yeah, fair enough. So, so when you went to high school, then which high school did you go to?
I went to Oak Hill College.
Oh, you went to Oak Hill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Up in here, Castle Hill. Yep.
Yeah. So you basically, your whole life's up here.
Yeah, I mean, out of like maybe 2 to 3 years out of my time in Australia, I would have been a Hills Kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Outside of those 2-3 years, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and how did you find the experience at Oak Hill?
Yeah, I love the school. It's a very kind of half academic, half sports kind of focused school. So it kind of suited me quite well, even though I didn't really join the whole organized sports system until like maybe like year 9 or something like that. Year 9 or year 10, I forgot. But I liked it. It was good. Good friends, met really good people, met lifelong friends there. So
yeah. So then, from an academic standpoint, like were you focused on academics, or I guess what was your parental focus as well? Like, were they pushing you for that?
Like every other Asian parents, they're always going to focus you on academics. But my parents are pretty good. They're very modern in a way, in an Asian way.
Yeah.
That they do want me to find what I want to do, but at the same time, it's like until you find that, just do well.
Yeah. Okay. So work hard.
You know
Just
what I mean?
get a really good mark so you can do whatever you want.
Basically. Yeah, and it's very apparent because it's kind of like I went to uni and I picked media, which is an arts degree, and they knew I was going to be in that creative world, but I didn't get to choose it until I was at uni. So like throughout the whole high school, they forced me to kind of like focus on what I'm good at school, which is all like logical stuff, which is physics, maths, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So when I went to uni, it's just like my stats just don't add up. It's just like you did that and now you're doing this. Yeah.
So when you say that they knew that you wanted to do media, but then they pushed you to do the academic stuff.
They didn't push. It's just more kind of like they knew I was a bit more creative because I like to draw, I like to do this, I like to game, I like, but then they also knew that I'm very, like, if I put my mind to it, especially when it's like something that's logical, like maths and science, I just get a good grade. Because it's kind of like, to me, the way my brain works is like, well, the answer's right there. How can you not get it? Kind of thing. So they're always kind of like, not push, it's just kind of like, look, you're good at this, just pick that and get a good grade so you can get a good college kind of thing. Yeah.
So did they have any pressure on you to want to do one of those Asian professions?
No. They'll just jokingly say like, should have been a doctor, it pays more. Or when I'm arguing with them, they're like, see how good you'd have been if you were a lawyer. Like, you know, it's just like a joke in a way. It has some truth in it, but you know, they've never forced me to kind of like, or my brother, they've never forced us to kind of like, you got to go into that kind of thing. No.
Yeah. So when I think back on, well, I had no idea. Well, I wouldn't say I had no idea. I had some idea in terms of what I wanted to do, but I didn't really know where I would end up. So when I went to uni, so I wanted to study engineering, and at the time, my marks were good enough to study engineering and law at UTS.
Yeah.
So then I thought, I'll do it, because I think that would have been one of the first years that UTS actually offered that as a double degree.
Right.
So because it's not common, you know, usually you find like business law, commerce law, those sorts of, or arts law, like those sorts of degrees together. But to do engineering and law, like my mindset was really simple. It was like, what am I good at? Well, I'm good at English and maths. So, so I'm just going to do the degree that is most like just doing English and maths. So did, you know, when you made that decision to go into media, like, so you already were thinking, was that in your mind or?
No, honestly, I didn't know what to do with.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I want to do in university at all throughout the whole picking, throughout everything. Yep. All I wanted to do was get through the HSC and see what marks I get. Yep. And till this day, I hate the fact that I suck at English. And I don't suck at English. I actually do suck at grammar and all that kind of stuff. My wife always corrects me. I just didn't like the idea of like, how do they mark you on something that don't have a right or wrong answer?
Yeah, it's not black and white. Yep.
And I just hated that whole idea, and I hated the whole subject. I did basically band 6 and whatever the highest mark you can get for all of my subjects. Yep. Except for English. And this is the most annoying thing in the world because I did standard English and then I still sucked at it.
Oh, wow.
So like, even by having top marks for everything, it brought my UAI down really low.
Really?
Yeah.
Just because of standard English?
Yeah. I mean, like,
because it didn't scale well.
I did extension 1 maths, I did physics, all of them were band 6s. Like, every other subject I do was like the top band. Yep. English was like band 4, and then I got, you know how you get the marks first, you don't get the UAI? Yeah. And then I remember I got the marks and I was like, oh, it should be fine. If you average that out, it's good, it's band 5. And then the UI came out the next day, and like my goal was like, as long as I get 90, I'm happy. Yeah. It was like 89.95.
Oh, that's close. You 0.05 off.
They shorted me by 0.5. Yeah. But like even then, like I wasn't worried because I didn't even know what I wanted to do. So like there wasn't even a mark that I was kind of aiming for. Yeah. I decided that I wanted to do architect.
Okay.
Because I like drawing and I like designing houses and stuff like that. Yep. And
wait, you like designing houses in high school?
I did technical drawing.
Oh, okay.
And every time there was a project, I always pick like a house project rather than like an office or a building or anything like that. So I wanted to do that. And this is weird. I don't know why. Like I picked Sydney Uni, UNSW and UTS for architecture. And then the fourth pick was, you know what? I'm going to be my backup. I'm going to pick media in UNSW. Wow. Someone told me after that apparently some universities don't like that you pick a rival university at the same subject because it might be a very close rivalry. Yep. Because with architect, you have to go into an interview process, not just a picking one. Yep. I didn't even get through to it, even though my marks were enough for all of them. Yep. And then they just chose me on the fourth pick. So. Oh, really? So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing that one then. Okay. I still didn't know what I was getting myself into. Yep. Yeah.
So for architecture, I didn't realize architecture was they do, like, that's usually like what they do in the mid subjects for.
Well, I don't even know if they still do it now, but at the time, you have to pick your picks, and then for each of your picks in architecture, you have to submit a portfolio and I guess like a letter of intent. Yep. And if you get through, you'll get interviewed. I never got to the interview process. So, but then they called me up on the media one, and then they said like, present a portfolio adjusted to media, and then we'll go from there. And I did that, and I got in. Okay. And here we are now. But yeah, at the time, I'd never touched a camera. Yep. I've never wanted to do photography. Yep. I've never been interested in it. I've never done graphic design or anything like that.
Okay. So then,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did what did your parents say? So like, because they would have known that it was your fourth pick, right?
Yeah, like what? No, it's the fourth pick was like my dad was actually saying like you should do this as a backup. He was like you should do this as a backup because at the time he was running a cafe. At the time, one of his staff did media communications in UNSW, and she graduated and got a job in ABC. Yeah, and ABC pays high. Okay. And then my dad's like, you should do this, it's good. Well, I never got to the ABC job part, but yeah. So that was there because of him.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So then when you went to uni, like what was that, how did you find that experience? So you never picked up a camera before, you hadn't done any graphic design, and now here you are basically in the deep end, right?
Can I just...
Yeah. Just pause.
What was the one about?
So,
going through uni.
Yeah, in the deep end now.
Yeah, look, I didn't know what to expect at all, to be honest. I just thought it was media, and I thought it was something creative, something fun. So I was like, oh, let's have at it.
Yep.
It was weird. It was weird. Definitely was weird. It's a different experience from high school. I didn't like the fact that it was kind of like you're given a problem, here you go find your own solution. Whereas in high school, it was just the best thing for me because it was like, here's your problem, this is the formula, and now find the answer.
Yep.
Everything's in front of you. Whereas like in uni, it's kind of like you had to go out there and do it yourself. Yeah.
Yep.
That part was different. And at the same time, I didn't know that Bachelor of Arts means English, basically, right? Like everything that you had to do was reading, creating essays, creating stories, creating this, creating that. And I just went from a high school run of getting the best marks that I can be in all of these logical subjects and failing my English subjects and going into an English course in university. It's just kind of like, what am I doing here? Yeah. For the first year, no one was teaching me what media means. Everyone was teaching us like Freudian theory and philosophy and all this stuff that I still don't even use till now. All I remember from my first year was about a guy who fantasized about his mum. Like, I still don't understand why they taught us that kind of thing. So it was a bit of a weird one. Yeah, a bit of a weird experience. Probably one of the reasons why I think I got into photography and videography was because I felt like media or my idea of creative media wasn't being taught in uni. I wasn't willing to wait till third year. So I just went out ahead and found some friends that are just as curious as me and went out and learned from YouTube.
Okay.
Everything that I know today, it's not to be a dick to like universities or anything. Yeah. Everything I know today was not from the university. Yeah. Everything was just from trial and error, from tutorials in YouTube and going out and actually just doing them. Yeah. But yeah.
I actually think that's one of the best ways to learn anything really is the trial and error approach. Like, I think, part of the reason why kids learn so fast is because they just keep trying whatever they can until something works. And then they go, oh, if I keep doing this, then I'm going to get this other outcome.
Yeah, well, everything's accessible now. Yeah. That's probably why they're progressing a lot faster than us. Yeah, true. But, you don't have to go out and find things. Like, at that time, YouTube was just kind of like not even that big yet. Yeah. You had to search for a lot of stuff on YouTube to find the one video that you want kind of thing. Right. So, but we did that. Every summer holiday, every time break from uni, I would get together with like a few of my friends and create like a short film project or something like that. Just learn from it. Yeah. We did nothing with it. We didn't submit it to anywhere. We didn't do anything with it. It's just more kind of like a learning experience.
So you never uploaded any of them to YouTube and stuff?
Some we did. It's not really for anything. It's just more kind of like, look, we just went through a whole term of just like writing essays when we can be making films. Yeah. So by the time that we got to the practical side of things, it was easy.
You're really good at it already.
It was not really good. It was just like we were done with it. Like we knew what to do kind of thing. But at the same time, it also made us shine a little bit more. So I actually got my first job from uni because the projects that I took on board in uni kind of took an eye from one of my lecturers. Yep. And then he was kind of like, oh, how did you learn all this stuff before we even taught you? And I told him like, we went out and all that kind of stuff. And he liked the initiative and he put my name forward to a production company. Oh, wow. That was looking for a young person to kind of join in. And that was my first job, like outside of just retail kind of stuff, right? And that, I guess that was like the most invaluable lesson I'll have in terms of my career was from that job kind of thing. Okay. And we wouldn't have gotten that if I wasn't kind of just, okay, what do we actually want to do here? And then
Yeah.
actually did it myself.
Okay. So I want to unpack a couple of things there. So you mentioned that you were working some retail jobs, so that would have just been for income, right?
No. Shit.
You brought it up, so I always like to pick on these things.
Yeah, look, retail job. I worked for my dad.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So when we came to Australia, he actually picked the profession of cafes.
Okay,
That's
yep.
the reason why I do like cafes. It was from him. He owned a few muffin breaks in Jamaica Blues around Sydney.
Oh, okay.
So he was into franchise.
Yep.
The reason why I was working, no, my dad didn't force me to work to learn the trade or anything like that.
Yep.
I wasn't working because I wanted to work. Actually, my brother was the one that went out to look for jobs because he wanted to work. I would just much rather sit at home and do nothing and play games. I had to work because I had fines.
What, car fines?
Yeah.
Speeding?
The first week I got my red P plate, I was coming home from a movie marathon back when movie marathon was a thing.
Yep.
I got done 120 at an 80 zone.
Oh, shit. How'd you not lose your license?
120 on an 80 zone. The police was behind me, and I tried to
Race him.
I tried to get away from him in a Honda Civic, automatic 1.8.
Was that so back then? Was that an EK or an EG?
No, it was an FD.
FD. Okay.
Yeah. Even the cop was kind of laughing when he caught me. I was caught right in front of my house, by the way, with my dad watching out the window. So I like to tell people I nearly made it. I nearly made it to my garage and like escaping forever.
Yeah, good luck with that. He would have just knocked on your door.
well, you can deny it. You know, like back then it wasn't about like there wasn't really technologies of capturing number plate license at middle of the night,
yeah,
right?
and the videos weren't there.
And hills was
No
dark.
dash cams. Yeah.
Back in the day, there's no street lights.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So yeah, so I got done for speeding and evading the police. I got done with suspension. He was nice. It was only a 3-month suspension, but the fines were like in the thousands.
Yep.
So that's when my dad was like, you know what, you come work, you'll be my staff. I'll pay you, but that pay goes straight to the fines.
Yeah.
So that's basically so from speeding, I got introduced to coffee.
Yep.
And coffee, and then became here.
Yeah.
Like, I just became infatuated with coffee ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it that infatuated about coffee though?
I don't know. I think the culture, the fact that the idea that coffee is, you don't need it.
You don't.
You don't need it.
Yeah.
It's not a necessity. It's not like water and food. And yet there's a massive following that revolves around the fact that you need it.
Yeah.
Right. And even at the time, it wasn't that big yet.
Yeah.
People were coming back for it. And people were coming back, and I would say, I don't know if people can correct me if I'm wrong here, but Australia around that time was on a very interesting transitional period in coffee where Australia was about to become the forefront of coffee. And most people still deny it now, especially the Italians.
Yep.
But Australia is the forefront of good coffee.
Yep.
And that was around the time when it was kind of like, coffee's not just about a foam on the top of a coffee shot.
Yep.
It was about creating the best milk. It was about creating the best crema. It was about creating the best flavor in mixing, in everything. Like everything was experimenting, right? Latte, for example, came out of Australia.
Yep.
Right? It's not an Italian thing. In Italy, it's literally milk with a bit of coffee, not the other way around, kind of thing. Drinking out of a glass cup, not like a Dural glass cup, that came out of Australia.
Yep.
No one drinks coffee from a glass cup.
Yep.
So it was that period as well.
Yep.
So it was kind of interested me a bit.
Yep.
And obviously my dad was infatuated with coffee because he's always been a kind of guy, like if you want to sell something, believe in it.
Yep.
So he believed in it so much that he brought it home every day, right? He brought it home, like he brought the conversation, he brought the idea, he brought the concept home. So like I was exposed to it at a very young age. I don't know, it just kind of grew from there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you remember the first time you had coffee?
No.
Was it at a young age?
But I remember the first time like making coffee.
Yeah.
Like, and getting the compliments or getting people coming back specifically for my coffee. And it was weird because I'm like, I'm not even that good.
Yeah.
But people came back because they have a preference to have like
How it's supposed to be.
You know what I mean? Well, it might not even be how it's supposed to be, but like to them, they think it's how it's supposed to be. So they came back, and then I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it's different from any other drink.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, because I've talked with this about coffee with Sam, right? And like I guess what we were sort of saying is that in the past, coffee was very much an art in the sense that it's all up to the barista. right? Like the feel, the temperature, all that sort of stuff. You know, the pressure when you're tamping it and all that sort of stuff is all up to you're doing it by feel. But now it's like, you know, you can get quite a consistent cup of coffee just by having like the electric tamper that has a set pressure.
Yep.
So you know the grams are weighed. You know, you put your thing. What do you call it? The bucket. I don't know the technical term for it, but you know, you put that in the under the coffee grinder and it does a certain weight. And everything's like scientific now. It's all measured relative to, you know, for these beans, how should you make this coffee?
Yes.
Right. But I think, you know, back then it wasn't, right? Like people were still experimenting and they were
Like
trying all
your
of these
grinder was still the flat.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go, you know what?
that
It's
right?
about my finger flat. That's about 20 grams.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. It's for the good. The progression is for the good, of course, because unfortunately, as much as people go, oh yeah, back then it was about feelings, about the art of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about the art. But at the same time, coffee is not a kind of drink where you get it out of the coffee machine and you can taste before you give it to someone.
Yeah.
So you don't know how it tastes.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can get consistency that you know how it tastes in the morning, it should taste the same in the afternoon if all the numbers match up. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I actually quite like that there's a science to it, because I feel like, you know, when you have it down to that specific of a level, and the easiest way I can sort of relate to this is so I like to eat steak, right? And so more recently, so probably since maybe the middle of last year, my chosen method of cooking steak is to do the reverse sear.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so, you know, I you know, take the steaks out, put them on the rack, I dry them out,
Yep.
I salt them, I put them in the oven, you know, 90 degrees, 40 minutes, and like I have a specific, you know, methodology to how I approach it. But I feel like, you know, as a result of that, the consistency of my steaks is very similar every time that we make steak at home. Right? And I actually enjoy that, right? Because
you know it.
Yeah.
Like you know what you're gonna eat.
Whereas before, like, and when I think back on it, because I used to when I was at Mercedes-Benz in Wollongong, I had a gas burner. And had a cast iron pan at work.
Yeah.
And I used to cook on the roof of the dealership.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I used every morning, like I'd go to the gym and I'd go to the butcher, the local butcher, and buy like an aged cut of steak. You know, buy 2 steaks. So that was my breakfast and my lunch. And I'd go to the dealership, and first thing in the morning, I'm up on the roof cooking steak.
Yeah, right.
Right, in this cast iron pan. And I think back on it now, and I go, you know, I wasted so many good cuts of steak just because, like, you know, all I was doing was I was just trying to sear, you know, the meat and basically eating it, you know, raw or like blue.
Right.
Right. Because that's what I thought I enjoyed.
Was supposed to be,
Yeah. And then after I learned how to do the reverse sear, and like it's so simple.
Yeah.
But the consistency was so good, and the texture of it actually became better.
Yeah.
As a result of it, that I was like, oh, this is how I'm going to do steaks
forever.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but like, you know, without doing that, then you can't play around with it. Like, you know, you if you're going by feel every time, you're going to have it create an inconsistent product. Whereas now it's like I can, if I know it's been in for 30 minutes and I can have a look at the meat, if it's a thick cut or a thin cut, then I just adjust the amount of time that I do for my sear.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just, I quite like that, you know, we're getting to this point where you can go really deep into things, and things as simple as coffee.
Yeah.
You can go so deep into what is the right amount of, how many grams, what's the pressure, how much, you know, all the water and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, we went on a massive tangent talking about retail.
That's all right.
So, you know, let's bring it back to, you know, your videography project. So, you know, getting that job, that first job, as a junior, what do they call you?
So I worked for a company called Shark Island Productions. They were a documentary production company that was based outside of within Fox Studios in Moore Park. Okay. And I was brought in as an assistant editor. Yep. At a casual basis, whenever they need me, they'll bring me in and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what kind of documentaries were they doing?
The most notable one that they've done, probably when I was working, I don't know what they've done the most recent, but when I was working, they did the Paul Kelly documentary. I forgot what is the actual title, but they did a Paul Kelly documentary. Okay. Yeah. Paul Kelly being the country singer. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So then had you already used the products that they used at that workplace? Yes. Yes.
So
in regards to like the editing, they were using Final Cut.
Okay. Yep. Is that what you use nowadays as well?
No, I'm into the Adobe side of things. Yeah.
Is there a reason why? I'm just...
Well, the moment I had to pay for something, I liked paying for something they're getting everything rather than paying for different things. So I use Photoshop a lot. I use Lightroom. You know, you use After Effects with a lot of the animation. That's an industry grade anyway. Yep. So why spend money on Adobe and then spend more money on Final Cut? Kind of thing, right?
So just do it all in-house?
Yeah. I mean, like I've got Adobe, then I get Premiere, and then everything kind of connects to each other. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then, Like, was there, so when you were working for that company, was there any specific things that you picked up that you were like, hey, this is a really good lesson? Or like,
Oh, for sure. Like, my editing workflow is still based on how they taught me there. Never let anything go. As an assistant editor's point of view, you actually get to see more than the editor does, right?
Okay.
Because you cull the footage.
Yep.
You go from all the bad footage to all the good footage. You get to cull through the documents and their reports on the field, and connect the dots. You get to cull through all the audio and all that kind of stuff.
okay.
In that sense, it was amazing because it let me see, without actually being on the field with them, it let kind of me see how they film on the field.
Yeah, okay.
And how did they prep for it? How did they organize for it? And at the end of the day, how do you actually develop a better editing workflow to make it a lot faster?
Yeah.
Because the whole time when I was there, my goal wasn't to get the most money out of them. My goal was, as me being me when I was a kid, I'd rather be at home.
Yep.
Right? So my goal was, how do I do the job they tell me to do in the fastest way possible?
Yep.
And it started really long, ended being like 1-2 hours and I'm done. I'm in and out. I'm in and out because that's all I had to do was to develop a system. And as soon as that system's in place, I'm good.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
So you get more and more proficient at it.
Yeah. And till this day, I still use that same, like the way I edit, it's still the same way as they taught me and I improved in a way.
Yeah. Okay. So they actually had like a specific style of
Yep.
Or workflow in terms of editing. They say, you know, cull the footage first or cull the audio first and then work your way through and piece.
Look, at the time, there was no such thing as auto sync. And there was no wireless audio that goes straight to your camera and all that kind of stuff. I had to resync everything by sound.
Yep.
Right? So the first thing was always syncing, and then finding the clap point, find the in and out of that clap point, and then straight away create a new sequence of, you know, if it was an interview, then you'd have the raw sequence, and then you'd have the answer sequence, where the sequence is just purely answers and no questions. And then from that, I'd have to cull in again of like another sequence that goes, what are the good parts of that answer? And then go through. And as I was doing that, I'd have to make notes on a pad or like another window saying, you know, this sequence at this minute, at this second was talking about this and this and this and this. So when the editor comes in, they don't have to look at the bank of footage anymore. All they have to look at is the report and the sequence and like, yep, I want that.
Yeah.
But the good thing about it is I recently I guess 2 years ago, we did a documentary for Porsche Centre Willoughby with my business partner. And it was still, I think till this day, it's still our biggest project yet. That was a 1.5 year long project of filming and editing.
Wow.
To make I think it was like a 25-30 minute mini documentary.
Okay.
And everything I learned from Shark Island, I put into here. And like the biggest thing that helped was doing all of those reports and doing all of those shuffling of like into little topics or little subheadings. All the boring bits made the editing done within a day.
Okay.
Right? You spend the whole year doing the boring stuff, but then the editing was just super quick.
Yeah, okay.
I turned my home office at home, we had a window, and it was just post-it notes.
Yep.
The post-it notes were the topic heading that was in Premiere.
Yep.
And it was just kind of like, all right, if I put here first, and then that second, and that, and we developed like a documentary on my window, and then we trial it out in the computer and play it. No, that doesn't work. We've got to shift it around.
Okay.
So, you know, you don't spend like hours and hours looking at a screen going like this and then trying it out, and you're like, oh, how did I have it before?
Yep.
Kind of thing. So a lot of the things I learned from that place, I still have today. It was good. Yeah.
See, I really like that because when it comes to, and I think, you know, in any sort of video production, at the end of the day, you're still presenting a narrative.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, you know, anybody who thinks that there's no narrative is misguided because almost every sort of video that is out there has some kind of a or
Right. Or it's lacking narrative.
Right. Then it could be a shit story.
Then you can tell straight away that someone was just doing, you know, piecing things together with a song kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and how I got exposed to that was, when I started using iMovie for doing videos at work. Yeah. Right. So I was doing videos for MacArthur BMW, and I used to piece it all together in iMovie and work out, you know, okay, we'll use this shot, and then sometimes you realize, oh shit, you need to take more footage to try and fill in these gaps, and then it's like you start to get better at it, so that, as you said, when you're planning your shoot, you go, okay, these are the things that I need to take shots of.
Yeah.
And then these are the speaking points. These are the things that I need to then go and sync. And you start to put it all together. And then when I really started getting into the narrative side of things was more when I was doing martial arts film studies for my own benefit. Right. But I was, I was looking at fights that had happened and then trying to take away things that would play out repetitively. So, certain sequences that would happen more than once in a fight. Yeah. Because a specific fighter might direct it that way. Right. Because they know, okay, once we get to this position, these are the sequences that they're going to use. Yeah. And then I had to actually start sitting down with a notepad and starting to write out, okay, so if I go and try and break apart this concept, right? So there might be this position, but these are the pathways that come out of that. Yeah. To try and actually get some sort of structure to work out, okay, well, if I wanted to apply this in my own training, if I get somebody into this position, this is now the pathway that I need to apply, right? So I really had to start thinking about that. And before that, I think lots of people in martial arts will watch, film like instructional videos or things like that to try and improve their knowledge. But I think there's a lot of merit in thinking about those concepts for yourself. Yeah. To then go and work out, okay, what is the structure that you think is the way to go? Yeah. And like two people might watch the same fight but have two totally different opinions on it. Yeah. Right. And it's the same thing I think in videography, right? Like you could have a particular take that you might come away from filming that, and then somebody else has a different perspective, right?
Of course, like I hate it when my business partner edits because when he transfers it to me, I have no idea what he's doing, and vice versa. When I do it and I give it to him, he thinks it's messy. So it's just different ways of doing things. Yeah. But at the same time, you can always learn from each other, and then you make yours even better by implementing other people's kind of methods. Yeah.
So with the Porsche Center Willoughby documentary. What was did they approach you guys for that, or was that something that...
We were already working with them. Okay. And we became really good friends with one of the marketing managers. We were already working with them with a bunch of videos that we've done. Yep. And then by the time it came to them wanting to do, I think it was their 50th anniversary. Yep. In Australia, so Porsche in Australia was 50 years. Yep. By the time it came to that, they were just asking like, what will it cost to do this and this and this and this. And we just had a discussion and we're happy with it because at the end of the day, we had most of the footage from previous projects, so we could have just placed in there. Yep. And all we had to do was pitch our idea of what would be good, which was, I love videos with a story. Yeah. Right. And when I say story, I love stories in general. So the thing that we pitched them was, I know it's 50 years of Porsche in Australia, but why not bring it to the 50 years of Porsche in Australia and their customers? Yeah. I mean, the customers are the ones that have the story to tell, not just Porsche itself. Yep. And they loved it. So we basically interviewed all of these long-time Porsche Willoughby customers and, and their journey with Porsche when it first came here. And, and Porsche is an interesting brand because it wasn't really regarded as, Ferrari or Lamborghini until very recently that people have respect for it. So the people that took on board buying a 911 when it first came to Australia, it wasn't like a thing that people want. So for people to buy it, that means they knew what they were getting into. They loved driving. They loved the idea of Porsche. So it was cool, like actually meeting them too and seeing their collection and know where they came from and what they think about it now and what they think about what Porsche should be in the future. So it was one of my favorite projects to be in. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can sort of diverge and talk about cars because I think, cars can be a very emotive thing, especially for guys if you're into cars, right? Yeah. So, I think Narada and...
That's right, yeah.
And those guys as well. So, my friends started Circuit Club when we were back in uni.
That's right, yeah.
And so there was a lot of track driving and, at the time, everybody had whatever car. Yeah. And, we'd go down to Wakefield, every month almost at some points and drive cars on the track, right? And it was I think it sort of progressed from, so originally it was like, we were doing runs on the old Pacific Highway. And then, and so
I know all the stories.
Yeah. We won't talk about too many of those. But, like for me, it was like, I was at the time, I think when it first started, I was driving like my dad's Camry. Yeah. V6 Camry. And then, then you sort of progress from there and you get into different...
Hey, it's a good V6, man.
V6, yeah.
It's a good engine.
Then.
They still probably use it by now. So.
That V6 then became the Orion. So
That's right,
So it
yeah.
went to a 3.5 from a 3 liter.
Yeah.
But you know, those alloy 1MZ, I think it was 1MZ FE back then. People still use those and plug them. Like I think Ivan's brother Adrian has one in the back of his MR2. Well, he's got the Orion motor in the back of his. But you know, people had plugged those kinds of engines in the back of MR2s and things like that. And like it was, I find it really interesting because like those sorts of things really bring people together.
That's right. Yeah.
Like that car culture is around bringing people, like-minded individuals together.
I think I might be biased, or we might be biased here, but I haven't come across a culture / community like a car community in regards to bringing so many different variety of people together in one world.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to like photography, camera, videos, it just doesn't do the same as the car community.
Yeah.
And it's something that the people that's outside of the car community can't understand because they're not in it.
Yeah.
But then as soon as they experience it, it's just weird. It's like, I can think on the top of my head, as soon as someone goes, hey, I need this. Oh, yeah, I got a guy for that.
Yeah.
Done. Because it's just that many variety of people coming together.
That's right. Well, that's the thing. You got the guys who might be just getting into the car game and they're still very early in their careers versus the guy with the Porsche. Who has had a whole bunch of had a long career already and has culminated in him having a nice expensive car that he can drive around on track. Right. But all that experience, in terms of lifetime experience, you can have such polar opposites on the track. Right. And I actually think that doesn't just apply to car culture. I think that applies to martial arts as well. But I think it's those kinds of communities that really you can find somebody who does anything. Right. And it's just about the more invested you are in that community, the better that you actually get to meet the more people you meet. Right.
The more rewards you get out of it. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. But like I feel like car culture. Back when in my uni days when I was growing up, it was like. Obviously, Japanese cars were all the rage. Back then JDM was the way, and I feel like it went a little bit quiet for a few years, and then now it's like sort of different in the sense that JDM cars have now gotten ridiculously expensive.
Yeah,
almost like I think for the guys who like the Australian style muscle cars, like when the Brockies and things like they started to go up in value, we're sort of seeing that now
with Japanese cars.
Yeah.
I mean, more countries now are allowed to have them, so there's more demand and less supply, I guess, in a sense. That's why they're going up. Like America's now allowed to have the GTRs and the Silvias and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I don't know if it kind of quietens down, but I think it really just depends because it's such a big culture. Like you went into it with like Circuit Club and the track and stuff like that, but someone in the car community would have been in the auto salon side.
Yeah, true.
Right?
100%.
And then someone would have been in a completely like the Euro side of building, Golfs, Mark 1s and stuff and dreaming to go to Wreckfest. And no one knew Wreckfest unless you were a golf guy back in the day kind of thing, right? So I guess it's just it's such a big thing. Like for me personally, like I tried to like the track and I kind of like it. It's not really my thing though. Right.
So what got you into cars?
Well, I think my brother definitely got me into cars because again, like older brother, you look up to them, you want to do what they do. But at the same time, what really kind of attracted me to the car culture is my creative side. I like creating something out of nothing. So the modification part, especially the aesthetic modification part, is what I really love because it means you take a canvas that's already done by someone else, but you create it into your own. It's like you're building what you think that car should have came out of the factory looking. And that's what I love most about it. And then I dived even more into through Petrolicious videos. And Petrolicious videos to me, what I got from it was the emotive side of driving. Not so much who's the fastest, who can get around the track the most, who's the better driver. It's just more about when you're driving, what do you feel? How do you feel with that car? Does it bring memories? You know what I mean? Like, and that's the whole Petrolicious videos was about people, like even cars that you might not like, or most people might not like. They might have a really old Citroen that they have to crank at the front. And they're like, why the hell would you buy that? But the guy has an a connection to it. So when he drives, he's the happiest guy in the world. And that's just what got me into it. It was just the idea of cruising around town in a car that I can't let go, no matter what. kind of thing. Yeah.
I can appreciate that. I think there's like a really nostalgic's not the right word. I think it's more like a romantic
Connection,
idea, connection to it, right?
You don't even have to have memories. It's just the idea that when you find the right car for you, you know it.
Yeah.
Because you most likely would want to sell it if you drive it every day.
Yep.
But you'll never sell it because the moment you think about selling it, you pull yourself back. And then you're like, that's the car. Like, that has to be the car, right? And then if you don't drive it every day, every time you drive it, you just fall back right in love with it.
Yeah. See, I laugh about this because I built a few cars over my time, and I think, you know, part of doing the build was just so punishing for me that, you know, you sort of get over the car by the time you finished it.
Right. Yeah.
So you know, if I go back through it, so my the first car I ever built was like it was an A86 Australian ADM Sprinter. Had a 4AC engine. Took it out, you know, so that I could just thrash the crap out of the 4AC until the 4AC blew up. And then I picked up a 4AGE big port off one of the guys that I worked with at Castle Toyota. Like he had a spare motor lying around. I got the motor for $100. So then I rebuilt the whole thing.
That doesn't even exist anymore.
It doesn't, yeah, I know. And so I rebuilt the engine and then installed it. And I don't know, I just got over the car. You know, like as much as it was like, you know, it's a cool car, but I just got over it. And
Were
so
you driving it a lot?
Yeah, it was a daily.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem, right?
Yeah, it is a big problem.
So then after that, then I actually swapped that. So I swapped it with a little bit of cash on top for a JZX90 Chaser.
Right.
Yep. And that was a cool car.
That is like a cool car. It's still a cool car now.
It's still a cool car. Yeah. It's a it's a 4-door turbocharged Camry, right?
Yeah,
basically. So it had a 1JZ twin turbo, 2.5 litre, and you know I was using that as a daily.
Yeah.
Right. Fuel's obviously starting to add up now.
That was horrible. Yeah, it would have been horrible. Heavy car, Bodie.
Yeah, but it's so fast.
Yeah,
right? Straight line.
Yeah, but
what a car.
That's also part of the problem. You always want to go faster and faster, and you use up more fuel.
Yeah. So then, and then I think what happened was, then I was working at Toyota Motor Corporation. So I had a company car then. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get rid of the cars because it's just a money pit, right? And there's no point having this car if it's just going to sit in the garage. So I sold the JZX90, and then I thought, I'll do a project, right? So I drove out to like somewhere past Windsor, like heading into country area. Yeah. And because I found an MA61 Celica Supra.
Oh wow!
And so I bought the Celica Supra thinking that I was going to put a 1UZ in it.
Yeah.
So I was going to put a V8 into it.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that with a friend Jason, and we had it at his shop. I got the 1UZ. I got the burr housing kit so it could mate to the transmission. Yep. So it was going to be a manual 1UZ FE. Got the motor in the car and everything, and then it was like, you know, time to do the exhaust and then the electronics. And then I was like, I don't have time to do this anymore. Like, I just got over it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so then I ended up selling the 1UZ and the gearbox to one of my friends, Ben, who then put that into his Supra. Right. Yeah. So he had a, which model was it? JZA80 Supra. And so he had a V8 manual Supra as a result of it. And, and then I just ended up parting out the shell. And so I got out of cars for a bit. And then eventually then ended up with an MX-5. So you got an MX-5 as well. So we've got to talk about MX-5s.
Oh, no.
So I got this NA 1990 MX-5.
The same as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You know, and so it was a 1.6. Yeah. And then I managed to pick up a turbocharger kit. It was just like a Monty Mod style lock manifold. Picked up the turbocharger kit from a guy in Queensland who had used it on his race car, and then he had upgraded to something else. And so got it for a great price. He shipped everything down, and credit to the guy, I can't remember his name now, but he actually had labelled everything. So
wow.
Yeah. So I did it while I was at Mercedes-Benz in Wollongong. Like I parked the car, like I actually just worked on the car on Saturday morning. Yeah. And in 2 days I had fitted the turbocharger kit, fitted everything in, and did the turbocharger kit. Had one of my other friends help me gave me a hookup to get the Haltech reprogrammed. Right. And had Scotty, the tuning fork, actually program it for me. And it was funny because when I brought the car there, he was like, "Did you do all this yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Man, like it looks like shit, but but it's actually it's working, right?" Because he goes, "If you survive the dyno, then your car will survive everything else." And he's wound back, took out all the timing, and turbo's going red hot. Yeah. and then just kept working on it, and it made good power. Like I think it was like 162 kilowatts at the wheels.
Yeah.
And and then so I had that for a while and used that, drove it on track and did a few track days, and then I got to the point where I was like, I'm not using this car anymore. Like literally, it's just I'm paying rego and all this sort of stuff just to drive it on track every 6 months or something like that. So that and having kids, I was like, okay, I should probably get rid of it, and then put it up for sale. And I put it up for a really high price, and I got it.
Oh, right.
Like it literally sold at the end of the week.
Wow.
And I was a bit in shock, like when it happened. Like I had this guy call me, and I had the Lightyear Fastback on it.
Yeah.
So the guy in Victoria that was doing it. So myself and Ivan. So Ivan still got his MX-5.
Yeah.
He had the same Fastback. We both installed the Fastbacks on our cars, and I had this guy, call me and say, like, can I come see it? And I'm like, okay. And like the day that he came, it was like pouring rain.
Yeah.
And 160 kilowatts with a Torsen, in the wet.
It's no joke. For those that like making fun of like 160 kilowatts not enough. I mean, like 160 kilowatts with a diff and less than 1,000.
Yeah,
kilos,
like 980 kilos, right?
It's dangerous.
Yeah, right. And I had semis on the car, so it was weird because like when the guy came, like I didn't know whether he was serious or not.
Yeah.
Because like he comes and then I'm like, okay, like you can go for a drive if you want, and like I'll drive it first, and then if you want you can have a drive.
Yeah.
So I took it around the block, and I'm like, did you want to have a drive? And he's like, no, I'm okay. And I'm like, okay. Well,
all right.
Doesn't want to drive it. So then I drove it back to where I lived.
Yeah.
And then he was like, okay, I'll take it.
Oh wow.
And then I'm like, what do you mean? And then he's like, I'll give you money now and I'll drive it away. I'm like, what? Right. You've got the money here. And then like that whole time that he was with me, his mum was sitting in a car somewhere on the street, right? Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And so I was actually in shock, right? Because I hadn't put out the rego papers. I literally only put up that week, and I was thinking, if it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, like I'm happy to keep it.
Yeah.
And I actually messaged my wife. I'm like, oh, can you try and find the rego papers? The guy wants to take it now. And I was like, so like,
you weren't ready.
I wasn't ready.
No, you weren't ready.
I wasn't ready. Yeah. And then I was like, I was a bit lost for words. And I was like, well, so what? How are you going to get back and all this sort of stuff? And he's like, no. Because so what happened to his car?
Yep.
He had an NA MX-5, Series 1 MX-5 as well. And someone had run up the back of his car and totaled it.
So
and he didn't have insurance.
Yeah.
He just wanted to get another car. Yeah. And so, like that was, and I was like waving goodbye to the car that night, and I was just like in shock.
Yeah. Sorry, I just got to message my wife.
Yeah. That's all good.
That's interesting, man.
So, well, I guess what I'm curious about is what, how did you end up with yours? Because yours looks quite clean as well.
Hold on.
Yeah, do what you need to do.
How did I get into mine? Oh, man. I've always wanted an MX-5. I don't know why. And I didn't really tell anyone. It wasn't like a knowledge that, Daniel's been in love with MX-5. It's just one of those things where like, I've seen it somewhere before. Like that's a really cool car. Like it's, I have this love for British cars.
Yep.
Like I'm driving a Defender right now.
Yep.
I've always loved Land Rovers. My favorite cars of all time is M3. Okay. But one of my dream cars has always been like everything's always been British, like Aston Martins, Lotus.
Yep.
So that I don't know that something about that MX-5 shape. I've always loved because it's got that kind of British roadster kind of feel of back in the day where like the windscreen is supposed to be that low, like the car is supposed to sit that low and the top apart from the windscreen is that flat kind of thing. There's no kind of, I don't know, it's just so hard to explain, right? Yeah. So I've always wanted it. Pop-up headlights is one of the things that I've always wanted to have. Like I've never had one before. It was around the time where I had my Mini. So I had a Mini Cooper S, the two-door, the backwards baseball cap kind of design, the ugly looking one. Yeah. Modified the crap out of it, right? Until there was nothing else to do. Yep. And I loved it. It was the longest time I've ever had, like for a car. Yep. I keep changing every now and then. So that was the longest serving car I've ever had. And I remember meeting a friend of mine who ended up also getting an MX-5. I remember meeting a friend of mine and then we were talking and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to sell this car too. And I've always wanted an MX-5. And he's like, oh man, I've been looking for an MX-5. Okay. So I didn't get to get it because I was trying to go sell the MX-5, get a more comfortable car because I was trying to save up for a business.
Yep.
Right. So I was trying to be responsible. And then times just passed, and then I remember seeing him on the road one day. He just beeped at me. He's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "What the hell?"
You got an MX-5.
It's like, I just got an MX-5. It was a spec I wanted.
Yeah.
1.8 BRG 10 leather.
Yep.
Completely stock, so he can start. By the way, this guy is called Steve, 96 BRG. It honestly became one of the cleanest MX-5 in Australia.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember seeing him and I just got so jealous. I was like, man, I want it. Maybe now is the time to do it. So I messaged him. It's like, hey, you know what? If you can find me an MX-5, I'll buy it right now. And then we spent, I think, like a good 3 to 4 months looking for it because my criteria was tight. It was kind of like I wanted, BRG 10 leather stock.
Yeah.
I don't want a hard top, but I want it for a reasonable price. And I kind of want it in between 100 and 200,000 kilometers.
Yeah. Because
it's kind of like, I don't want it to be below 100,000 kilometers because it means the car hasn't been properly major serviced.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be like really high.
Yeah.
I don't think. And at the time, no BRG came up.
Yeah.
Honestly, like for a good 4 or 5 months, no BRG came on the market at all.
Well, because I don't think there was many British racing greens in the NAs, right?
No, there wasn't many.
There wasn't many at all.
But this is just my luck. So I found, and then one day he messaged me. He's like, hey, by the way, I know it's not the spec that you want. And he's like, but this is the MX-5 that he has wanted when he was looking for an MX-5, but it wasn't for sale.
Yeah.
It was a 1.6 1990 low kilometers. I think it was like 114,000 kilometers.
Wow.
But it was already supercharged.
Yep.
So everything was done in a way, and it was a bit of a popular car. People knew about it, right? Then I looked at it and I was like, you know what? I don't like it because it's like it had like all of these aftermarket bumpers and all of these flashy stuff outside of the car, and it had chrome VSKF wheels. I got murdered, by the way, like months after for changing those wheels because it's got like a massive cult following. I don't know why. It had all that, and he's like, look, why don't you just look at it, and we'll go from there.
Yep.
And I'm like, all right, cool. We'll look at it. Had a look. The guy literally lives like 2 minutes from Benzin right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Had a look at it. Drove the car around. And I'm like, man, I actually like this car, eh?
Yeah.
This is actually pretty cool. And the deal was so good. It came with a hard top. It came with a hard top stand, hard top cover.
Yeah.
Like stuff that people don't have.
Yeah.
So I ended up buying that. That's how I first got the MX-5. I actually went out telling my wife that I'm going to have a look at a car, came back with a new car. And then she wasn't my wife at the time, came to her house with a new car and said, let's go, drive to Palm Beach right now, top down kind of thing.
How did she take it?
And that was her first experience on an MX-5, and ever since then, she was like, I hate your car, and I hate it forever.
Yeah. See, my wife wouldn't get in the MX-5.
It's just horrible.
Because of it, like, I had the coil lever suspension. It was
she just felt like as if she's going to get trampled by every other car.
Yeah.
Not even by trucks, just by a normal car. But anyway, that's how I got it. I still didn't like the look of it, so I stripped it back. So like, I took away the JDM bumper.
Yep.
Sold it to someone else, found a stock one, repainted it, put it on.
Yep.
It came with like rear lip and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I took that off. I didn't put it on. Changed the wheels.
Yep.
I bought cheap Enki wheels, but to my liking. They're not of any kind of popular look or anything like that.
Yep.
But I wanted to keep it that kind of vintage resto mod kind of Japanese racer kind of feel, I didn't like the whole stands kind of look. Put some thick tires on it, redid the whole interior, and by the time I liked how it looked outside, the car was so problematic with that engine. It was driving me nuts. I changed every little bit in that engine just try to get rid of that idling problem.
Oh, no.
Because it was a supercharge.
Yep.
Meaning that it moved the throttle body away from the manifold.
Yep.
To the other side of the engine.
Yep.
So there's like this gap of air that's just kind of flowing through.
Yep.
So it would just die out every now and then, especially when you're going on load and you press the clutch and it goes like this.
That's
it just goes
frustrating.
boop, done kind of thing. So it was also kind of dangerous in a way.
Yep.
And I tried every single thing and it couldn't work. Like it just never really fixed it. I spent so much money on just trying to figure out what it is.
Yep.
Now it's good, but I spent a lot of money on it. I opened up Benzin, and one of the customers that come through is actually Mark who owns Haltech.
Yep.
And I spoke to him about all this kind of stuff, and he's just like, "Look, Daniel, I'll help you out. I'll give you, I'll sort you out with a good deal on the ECU, and then you just find a tuner, and we'll go from there."
Yep.
And I ended up doing this. I was like, I just want to get it over and done with.
Yeah.
So I got the ECU. I got a really good tuner from Seven Hills. The car spent like 2-3 weeks being tuned.
Yep.
And, a few thousands out of my pocket. The car's good now.
Okay.
It's super reliable, always starting,
Yep.
idling issues no more.
Yeah.
So now I enjoy it even more. But yeah, that's basically the MX-5 story.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it's cool when you have those kinds of stories because like I said, it's not nostalgia. It's almost romantic. Like you have this ideal. It's so emotive to really think about when you think about that car.
Yeah, I mean, like I said about those petrol issues videos. I remember one of the videos was about a guy that owns an E30 M3.
Yeah.
And he was saying in the videos that the best part about driving that car is not the speed, it's not the cornering, it's not even the looks. It's crunching through the gears as you go through the revs slowly.
Yeah.
And he's saying that word slowly, and then that's how I feel with the MX-5.
Yeah.
I put it through all pack. I don't speed.
Yep.
I just go through first gear, just ring that like rev
Yep.
up, and then change to second
Yeah.
gear. You don't even have to change it fast. You just change it slowly.
Yeah.
But while you're doing that, it's just like you're just getting lost in
Yeah.
the whole process of driving a manual car.
Yep.
And that's the reason why I haven't sold it.
Yep.
I drive it like once every 3 months, man.
Yep.
There's no point of me having it.
Yeah.
But every time I drive it, I just never want to let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I sympathize with that.
Yeah,
But
I think
but had
that's
to
I think that's it. I think that car is it for me. Like I wanna have a Porsche. I wanna have this, but like I think that car is gonna be with me forever.
you don't want to let it go.
No, I mean I always say like the only way I can let it go is if someone offers me money that can buy me a Porsche. Then I'll let it go. Yeah.
Are we talking a Boxster or are we talking?
I'm talking about a 911.
Yeah.
So like
Everyone wants a 911.
Yeah. So if I can't get a 911 out of the MX-5,
Yeah. It's not worth it.
no, it's not worth. I'll work my 911 another way.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Let's switch gears a bit. Tell me about like how you got the idea to start Benzin Cafe.
I've always wanted to have a cafe ever
Yeah.
since working at my dad's cafe and all that kind of stuff. I've been in love with it.
Yep.
And after working in my dad's cafe, going through uni, cafes became a place of me to meet my friends, to study, to work. I was a freelancer a lot, so I was editing out of home a lot. I was, going to cafes and plugging my computer and just working out of the whole day.
Yep.
Having lunch, having breakfast, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
And it became an experience. The whole cafe culture to me became an experience, and I just fell in love with it. And the more you're in it, the more you kind of go, you know what? Just like cars, I kind of want to have one of my own that I build,
Yep.
that I kind of physically shape into what I think a cafe should be, kind of thing.
Yep.
So I've always wanted it. But I knew from, again, my dad, hospitality industry is no joke.
Yeah.
And now people may be starting to realize, but not enough. But most people don't know. Hospitality industry is just probably like if you don't do it for the love, you won't survive because it's not a way to make money.
Yeah. It's hard work.
It's just hard work for very little gains, right? So I just never did it. I've always wanted to, but I never did it. I just saw doing weddings, doing corporate videos, being in the video side, that got me money. That got me a career. That got me a life. That got me things that I want in life.
Yep.
Right? So I just kept doing that. Until to a point where it's kind of like, look, I've done all of that. Like at the time, all the wedding stuff was kind of almost self-sustaining. You know, I've got shooters, I've got editors, I've got this kind of thing. And that's when I was like, you know what, maybe this is the right time to open up a cafe. Found the right partners.
Yep.
Found the right idea, found the right design and all that kind of stuff. And we just kind of go, you know, let's just do it. Right? And the funny thing about Benzin is like we started thinking we shouldn't do something that's so focused onto a theme because we might lose out on the general public. So we were still in that fear of like, what if the general public don't accept? Because car world has a bad stigma to it.
Yep.
Thanks to a current affairs in Australia,
Yeah,
kind
of
of thing,
course.
all that kind of stuff, right?
Hooning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we actually thought, you know, maybe we just make a cafe that's for the general public with a little bit of car theme to it, you know, and that's it. We got burned from 2 locations with one of them was a bad neighbor that kicked us out at Strata. So we lost a lot of money on the first
Oh, what?
location
Okay.
without even opening. The second one, we didn't really lose money, but we lost time because we thought we were getting the space and then the owner of that place backdoor cut the agent and rented to someone else.
No way.
And then
So
that-
hang on, before you get to the next
Yeah.
part of the story. So what happened with the first place? So how did that? Why
we
did that
put a
neighbor-
deposit
Yeah.
down. We were already renting. We already put money down for DA and all that kind of stuff. All the approval process needed money. So we put everything down already. We spent money already.
Yeah.
But to have a kitchen, you need a grease trap.
Yep.
To have a grease trap, you have to drill. If you want to drill in any suite, in Australian law, if you're renting out a space in a complex, even if it's your own space, if you drill into the ground, that's common ground.
Yep.
If you want to do anything with common ground, you have to bring a strata meeting.
Yep.
But strata meeting would open someone saying no. Just so happens our shop was across the pathway from a fish and chip shop.
And they said no.
And he didn't like the fact that there was another food place coming in, and they put it on the basis that so the meeting was called, can they drill to have a grease trap? The talk became, if they open, there'll be lots of traffic and there'll be lots of traffic jam. So they weren't even talking about the old meeting thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But he raised this whole idea up, and the other tenants started thinking, oh yeah, how am I going to go to work?
Yeah.
And then we were like, hold on a second. Like, why does that even matter? Like right now you have a traffic jam because of this guy.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if people are coming to eat, what's the difference, right?
Yeah, so we got kicked out of that basically.
Okay.
There's money that you can't get back because it's council.
You've already put it, you already placed the money in for the approvals and things like that.
Yeah, we got money back from rent that we paid for sure. But money to go to council, money for design, money for architecture, that's not coming back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then the second place, what happened with that? So
we signed everything. Everything was in the process of signing. Sorry, I signed it and I gave it back. They had to sign it. We thought we got it, done deal. We were already in the designing process and everything like that. We already had things moving. And at the very last minute, the agent called me and said, I'm really sorry, but the owner has decided to give the space to someone else. I'm like, but I thought we had an agreement. And she's like, I thought me too. Yeah. And that didn't work out. But that was a disguise and blessing. That's a space currently in Castle Hill that's still vacant. Okay. Because I think the approval from council is still not out yet. So that would have been really bad for us.
Yeah. So it would have just delayed you guys indefinitely.
And then we found this place. And then as soon as we found this place, I think our mentality was kind of completely different. We were kind of like, all right, we've gone through all of that. Let's just not half-ass it anymore. Yeah. Like we were thinking like, if we're going to build something, might as well build something that we think we want and we're missing. Yeah. And that was a space and a hub for car enthusiasts and bike enthusiasts, basically like just gentleman culture to be accepted and celebrated. Yeah. That was what was missing because Australia doesn't have it. The closest thing we had was a place called Garage Cafe in Melbourne from like 2 decades ago, right? And they were amazing. They basically fed the whole of the car community in Melbourne until one day they decided to close up shop because they didn't want to extend the lease. Yeah. And then from there, we didn't have anything else. Collector maybe was the closest thing that we can have in Sydney. Yeah. But how can you be a car cafe and a car can't get into your driveway because it's just too rocky? Busy, yeah. Right? Like, and you can't find parking. Again, there's no sense of like community in these shops. Maybe Days Cafe would be like, Juice Cafe, however you say it, would be like the closest thing. But they're very like, I guess, closed off to just a certain type of bike culture. Not everyone, kind of thing. But if you went over to like overseas, and I used to travel a lot, you go to like Caffeine and Machine. In UK, you go Aces Cafe in London, even Days Cafe in Tokyo. All of them, when you go there, you kind of go, they built this place for the car community. Yeah. They built this place for the car culture to enjoy, and for them to be able to come to like a safe haven in a way where they're not judged, they're celebrated. They can also, it's like that feeling of like, even if there's no event, I can come to that place knowing there will be an event. Yeah. It's not a formal event. It's more like the people that come to the place become the event themselves. Yeah. Right? And that's what I love seeing about this place. Like, some people can come here by just themselves. Yeah. And then they go, oh, you're an MX-5 guy too. Yeah. Oh yeah, and then we become friends. Yeah. Kind of thing. So that's the whole idea about this place, is like kind of just a hub for people to meet other people. Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of like how Benzin started. We just didn't want to half-ass anything anymore. We were kind of going, if we want to make a car-themed cafe, let's just go full send. Like, let's do a car-themed cafe. Change the name, change the logo, make it all centralized about, automotive and everything automotive kind of thing, including bikes, the race culture back in the day kind of thing. Yeah.
So do you remember like the first day that you opened? So it was 2019, right?
Yeah, it would have been like second week or first week of December 2019.
Was it was that a bit of a challenge in itself? Because obviously, so obviously you had worked in retail before. When I say retail, so worked in hospitality before. Did you already have all the moving pieces? So did you have your people organized?
Yeah. We definitely wanted to have a manager who's set up straight away.
Yep.
So we had that, someone who already had experience with hospitality, and we didn't really want to muck around with food either. So we straight away employed a head chef.
Yep.
We didn't want to do our own thing and then us starting and then finding someone else in the long road ahead.
Yep.
We wanted consistency, so we wanted 2 leading heads, front and back, straight away. So we already had that in place. Yeah.
Okay.
The biggest struggle was just trying to get people here, because that this area is not there's no foot traffic. There's not even like car traffic that stop. It's like a destination, right? People need to know that we're here to be able to come here. Yeah.
Yep. So then what was your strategy for that?
There wasn't really any. Like there was just no way, because like even if you put a big ass sign outside, hey, Benzin Cafe is here. New Line Road may be a 60 kilometers an hour. Like no one's driving 60 kilometers.
That's right.
And there's a big 2 trees covering our side on the New Line roadside. By the time you see us, you're too late.
Yep.
So our biggest marketing strategy is put on an event every Sunday, have as many cars out the front as possible.
Yep.
So when people drive here on Sunday, they can't miss us.
Yep.
So the moment they know that something's here, hopefully Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, someone comes.
Yep.
And then experience it. And the biggest thing that I took from working at Muffin Break with my dad is the one thing that he taught me was that a cafe and a restaurant and whatever, it's not all just about good food, good coffee. You don't come back just for the good coffee. It might be crap coffee, and you still come back. Why? Because it's good experience. You're selling an experience, you're not selling a product.
Yep.
So that was the first thing that was really, really apparent with me and our manager, Yif, was that we got to sell our product of the Benzin experience. It's not so much the coffee. Yeah, the coffee has to be good. But the moment someone comes in here, they need to feel like the moment they go to another cafe, they don't get that experience. It doesn't feel the same. So because we had to work extra to get people to come back, it's not so much a necessity anymore. So that was the struggle. It was just kind of like, showing someone that they can't get this experience elsewhere. Yeah.
I think that applies to most businesses, right? I think a lot of people lose sight of it, and they start to think it's about profit and things like that. But if you're not offering an experience to a customer, why would they come back?
Exactly.
It applies to car sales. So when you're purchasing a car, there are people that are going to be price. And if that's the way that they are, you may never change them, right?
No.
But that doesn't mean that everybody's like that. A lot of people want to deal with somebody that they're comfortable to deal with.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And part of that is, feeling that, hey, is this person actually taking any of my interests and concerns to heart?
That's right. Yeah.
Or is it just like they just want to do this deal and move me along?
Yep.
And so, it's hard, because I think any business owner struggles to find people that are invested. And it's probably not right to think that somebody's going to be as invested as an owner simply because they don't have any money in the business. They don't have the risk and the overheads and things like that.
Right. Yeah.
But if you can create that culture where your people care because they actually enjoy offering that level of service, and they enjoy getting that positive feedback, that's like the positive feedback loop that then takes things to the next level, right?
Yeah, I mean, like we tried to do it with like on the fun side of things. I really don't know if any other cafe does this, but the first thing we did like with Yif was that, okay, look, we're a car cafe, and over like even the first couple of months, we met with a lot of people that go, oh man, like they came here, they're surprised, they're like, oh, you all like cars. It's not just a theme, right? Like, that's the biggest thing in business, right? Sometimes people take advantage of a certain market and a certain theme, but they're not even in it, right? They just know that there's money to be made. People come here and they realize, like, if you come here and you have the same kind of vibe as us and you talk to us, you'll get a conversation about cars.
Yeah.
We'll even stop making coffee and talk to you, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, we love that as much as being in the business itself.
Yeah.
So we started having like a close community of just a Benzin group of friends. And then we started doing drive days. And we started doing track days. We started doing ride days. Now it's a bit of a halt, but we used to do like a drive day every 2 weeks with just Benzin customers. Yep. And, if my manager wants to go, then I work here. If I go, then he works here, kind of thing, right? But it's the whole thing, like making this really is a hub to start off and then go somewhere else and then come around. But you have a bit of a family here, kind of thing. I think they still do like Thursday night ride days where they go to dinner together. We're not even open on Thursday night.
So
right?
the guys just come meet here.
They meet here. But we're not open. We're not making money of them. It's literally just a group of guys that came from here and going somewhere else
Yep.
for.
But they meet here
You
as
know,
a destination, and
We just meet here because it's kind of like a hub for us,
Yeah.
right? And that's the kind of cool part. And from that, it's like you've noticed that with some of the staff, it's not so much like pride, but it's so much more kind of like, hey, it's really cool that I work for a brand like this.
yeah,
Especially if they're in it. Like we've got a couple of the girls that like into bikes.
yep,
And to them, it's like, it's just cool that I work at Benzin because people know Benzin
Yeah.
and I like my bikes too,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And sometimes when we go out to events, we take we invite them to come as part of our crew.
yep,
And again, that's like just another thing where it's kind of like, it's just cool to be part of it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So that's what we try to do.
yep,
And because of that, obviously they feel like they also need to represent the brand when
in
we're
US.
open
Yep.
the correct way.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's good. So then, opening in December 2019, like that's literally a few months before the whole COVID thing happens.
Yeah, I mean, like December was dead, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, at the time, olden day time, right? December was dead for any business because everyone's out traveling.
Yep, holidays.
Right? Holidays and everything like that. So we had a really quiet moment, but it was good. It was time for us to kind of like, get through our nooks and crannies and get it really smooth.
Yep.
And January started picking up. December we opened with Club ITR being the first kind of car club that welcomed us and created a big event,
Yep.
right? And that's when we realized, hey, we really got something here.
Yep.
And in January we were a bit quiet, still trying to work our way up. February came, and from Club ITR and a bunch of Sundays that was happening, came along Porsche Club New South Wales.
Yep.
And they said to us, look, we want to open the year off for Cars and Coffee, and we want to have it at your place.
Yep.
Like, oh, cool. We had no expectation.
Yeah.
They did all the organization and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like we didn't book out the place for them. They just knew that they had to come here early before anyone comes, so that
Yep.
it looked like it was booked out for them,
Yep.
kind of thing. 120 Porsches came.
Whoa.
Like it was
Chaos.
It was nuts. It went everywhere. Like the
Yeah.
cars were everywhere. It was crazy because all of a sudden we were working. We looked at the window and we were like, "Damn, this is what we built it for."
Yeah.
It was one of those kind of eye-opening moments
Yep.
where we kind of like just went, "Yeah, like we wanted this to happen, but we didn't think it was going to happen."
Yeah.
And I remember that happening. Everyone went away. Everything was so smooth. Everyone loved it.
Yeah.
Right. They went home, and we were closing up the shop. And then me and my two other partners sat down, and we were like, "I think we underestimated our brand. Like, I actually think we underestimated our brand."
Yeah.
It was a quiet moment, which is like, "Oh crap."
Yep.
And that was the most annoying night ever because it was almost like, I don't really remember how many days after, but it was almost like the morning after was when the lockdown was announced.
Yep.
The whole restrictions started to come. So we were on a high.
Yep.
If you talk about marketing, it was the most unused marketing day kind of thing, right? Like we had that Porsche day happen. So many content was being made, so many creations, so many videos, photos, people were messaging, live stories, tagging, everything.
Yep.
And no one can do anything with it.
Yep.
Because the next day we would
Or
take
shut.
away and win.
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So by the time lockdown finished, it's not like people have good memory. They don't look back and they're like, hey, I remember that story
Yeah,
in
that's right.
February
No,
about
it's-
this guy.
But
No,
gone in the news cycle, right? Like
Done.
It's whatever's current.
exactly.
Yeah.
So by the time we opened up after lockdown, it's like as if we started all over again.
Yeah, wow.
Like day one. All right.
Yeah.
How do we do this?
Yeah.
How do we mark it out again? How do we do this and all that kind of stuff? But yeah, so that's our story about how we started. Till this day, obviously everyone knows that we had another lockdown. Till this day, Benzin still hasn't had a full calendar year.
Of events. Yeah.
No, just full calendar year of operation.
Yeah. Okay.
So we still don't know what we can do out of a whole year.
Yep.
Even I thought 2022 would be it, but now we have all these,
Disruptions again.
yeah, with the staff issues and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So we're still kind of like in the middle of like, all right, well, this is kind of almost feel like another lockdown
Yeah.
without it being a lockdown.
Lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So-
think that's the feeling for a lot of businesses, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's sort of, there's two ways to look at it. You can look at it as flattening the curve or kicking the can down the road. It just depends which way you look at it, right?
Yeah.
Like at some point, I think it's going to come for everyone.
Yeah.
And we're all going to be exposed to it.
I mean, the frustration with a lot of business owners is kind of like,
You can't plan for it. It's out of your control.
It's also
really.
just a question of like, and then what?
Yeah.
Like, if you tell me like a lot, and it comes down to a lot of the paranoia, right? Like people kind of go like, oh, I don't want to go to that place. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do my normal life because I don't want to get exposed, because I don't want to be positive, because then I can get my kids infected and I can get my parents infected. And they're all valid points, and they're still all going in my head. And I'm still pretty careful when I go around doing my job, right? Because I do have a young child at home. But at the same time, the question is, and then what? Yeah. Like, you're telling me that this is where we have to strive for, but then what? Yeah. Once we get there, and then what? Yeah. Because there's no clear solution, right? You can't tell me the goal is to go to zero. That's just not possible. So stop it. Yeah. Let's focus on another goal. Yeah. Right? Because you can't tell me after 2 lockdowns you still don't know what to do. Yeah, that's right. So that's the frustration with a lot of the business owners, because this is worse than lockdown. Yeah. Lockdown literally gave us the one thing that businesses always crave for: predictability. Yeah. So lockdown is actually good. Yeah. It's not a high quantity. Yeah. But it's predictable. Yeah. It's there every month. Is there. Yeah. Right. So it's not a business to make money, but it's always business that doesn't lose money. Yeah. Whereas this is the other way around. Isn't it only survivable just because of the government rebates and incentives? Like, well, I guess not incentives, but like the government's subsidies to basically run and things like that. Like, it's not sustainable either, right? No, it's not sustainable because the relief that you get is taxable. Exactly. So you have to pay that back the year after. Yeah. You don't have to pay. You know, the way you survive through things is you might be delaying your GST payments, your BAS payments. Yeah. But that means if you delay that, then you're forever chasing BAS. Yeah. You know, rent relief is no joke. There's nothing really. Yeah. It's not really. I wouldn't even call it relief. It's just called delayed payments. So if it's delayed payments, it's like BAS. You got to chase it up again and again after. Exactly. But at the same time, it gives you time to kind of figure out, all right, if A, B, C is the problem. Yep. What is my solution? Because I know ABC will always happen. Yep. Whereas now, it's not always ABC. It's something else. Yeah. It's something else every day, every minute. There's no predictability in terms of... So it's actually worse. And how do you plan for that? Because at the end of the day, you don't know, you know, when you have consistency, you can plan the kitchen, you can plan your food, your deliveries, all that sort of stuff. Exactly. And then now it's like, okay, so what happens now if all this stuff goes to waste, right? It's the complete opposite. It's like your wastage is high, your sales are down, you're paying more for wage and salaries because people are getting sick. Yep. But you have to pay for their sick leave. At the same time, you're paying for the replacements. But your sales are down because people are paranoid and they're not going out. Yeah. But then at the same time, it's not lockdown. So there's no such thing as rent relief. Because you can't go to another party saying, well, the government's locking us down. Yeah. We can't have that argument. And the funny thing is, we're still paying back for the delayed payments or whatever, right? We're still catching up. Yeah. So expenses are through the roof, but sales are a lot lower. Yeah. So it's actually worse than lockdown. And that's the funny thing about it. It's just like people think lockdown is the low point. Yep. And we're working our way. We're not. We're at the low point right now. Yeah. Kind of thing. Yeah. And that's why I wonder whether it's like, you know, part of you're sort of prolonging the problem, right? Yes. I feel like, you know, it's almost like a Band-Aid. Sometimes you have to rip the Band-Aid off. Yeah. But at the same time, you know, I understand the repercussions of ripping the Band-Aid off too, right? Like, and that's why, you know, cases are so high at the moment, because people feel like we're letting it rip. But then at the same point, you know, if you don't and you just keep going slowly, like at what point do you then, are you able to ever get back to any sort of normality, right? That's the hard part, I think, for business, right? So from a business perspective, I think for all business owners, I feel at the moment, especially like, you know, so hospitality is one industry, you know, heavily impacted. I think gyms and fitness, health, those sorts of industries are significantly impacted. Venues, you know, reception venues, wedding venues, all that sort of stuff, you know, heavily impacted, because if you have limits and caps on all those sorts of things, it's very difficult to run a business, especially if you have X amount of size, and you go, hey, I need to make this amount of income to actually pay my workers, pay my bills, and cover the expense base. Right? So it's such a hard balancing act, a very fine balancing act. Yeah. It's almost impossible, to be honest, for hospitality anyway. And I think it's still true to what they say. Whoever, you know, they were saying it. Whichever cafes or restaurants that comes out of lockdown is going to be the strong ones. And it's true. It's not strong as in they were the most popular or they were the most profitable. Strong as in who actually has the strongest foundation team. Yep. Who wants it? Who wants to be in it for the right reasons are the ones that are going to come out of it. Because if you were in it just for money to begin with, you would have already been out by the first lockdown. You would have just cashed out and be like, not too bad, I'm done.
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
thing. So yeah, we're still working through it. We're still trying to figure out how to do everything. For us, it's just, I guess, for our luck, I guess, if you want to call it luck, is that we started at the worst. I guess it can only get better for us, right? Like we literally didn't start as a high. We started on a low. So we're still hoping and dreaming for the 1 year that Benzin can really show everyone what Benzin is about, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and in the meantime, like it's good that you still got other things in terms of the videography and that side of things, right?
Yeah.
So from that perspective, like I think you did a wedding just this weekend past as well, did you?
Yes.
So
weddings are just coming back again. The way I do my things, I guess it's bad for me, is that I like to stick to my morals a bit. So when the whole lockdown thing happened, I told my business partner as well, on the wedding side of things, is that I don't want us to be the brand that charges fees for postponements. These are people's lives. Like we're in the business of not capturing a company doing a video.
Yeah.
We're in the business of capturing someone's biggest milestone in life.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess with someone's life.
Yeah.
If they have to postpone because the government is making them postpone, then I don't want to charge a fee.
Yeah.
I guess the downside of that is that it's a free postponement freedom act, right? Like they can just postpone anytime they want.
Yeah. And you're delaying your income as well, right?
Delaying my income and using up the dates that we can
do other
for
things.
New clients.
Yep.
Right. So till now, we're still servicing 2020 clients and maybe a little bit of 2021 clients.
Wow.
I had a couple who postponed. I think this is postponed again to November because a lot of a bridal party have, contracted COVID.
Yep.
And that would be her 5th postponement.
Wow.
Think about that. Like, as much as it sucks with me, I also bring it back to reality. It's like, think about someone trying to start their marriage.
Yeah. Start the next chapter of their life with somebody.
Start the next chapter in their life, and they can't, but they've already done it.
Yeah.
In a way.
That's right.
Like most people here, like when they already planned their wedding, they most likely have already planned buying a house.
Yep.
Right. That means they haven't gotten married.
Yeah.
They haven't had their wedding. They would have gotten married,
Right.
but they haven't had their wedding, and yet they already moved in.
Yeah.
They already had their life.
Yeah, and some people might already, by the time they actually can have their reception, maybe they have kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They're pregnant or something.
So it's kind of like a weird time where, like, not necessarily they haven't started their life, but they're like in a limbo, man. Like they've done all of this life stuff as a couple, they just haven't had the wedding.
Yep. The celebration.
So it's really heartbreaking. Like, it's really heartbreaking when I get an email saying like, "Oh man, we just really want to get it over and done with." That should never be the
How it
words out of a
feels.
wedding, right? So yeah, I mean, I still have it, but it's been slow. So I'm still, in a way, I'm still servicing 2020 income in 2022 kind of thing.
Yeah.
The only thing that's been keeping me forward is the corporate stuff, the stuff that I do with Monday Made and my other business partner is that the corporate video and photo stuff. So that's the only thing that's been keeping us forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's I guess, I always like to talk about this topic because I think, a lot of, we don't often talk about it enough, like, relationships, right? So, like, is your wife very supportive of all the things that you do?
Yeah, of course. And I think that's what's so amazing about her is that she knows what I'm going through. She knows what I'm trying to achieve. And she's very supportive of everything that I've done.
Yeah.
A lot of people just laugh and be like, "Oh man, you're lucky," because it's like, I opened Benzin, and for those that open any kind of business, especially like a physical mortar business, months leading up to opening, it's like the busiest time, right? You got to go through construction, you got to go through admin, you got to set up all this kind of stuff, you got to keep coming back here. And that was the year that she was pregnant with my daughter, Harper.
Yep.
And the day became the 2 weeks that she was in hospital and I was in hospital with her, was the 2 weeks of the final 2 weeks before Benzin opened.
Oh, wow.
So it was just manic.
Yep.
I was in hospital with her, trying to figure out, communicating with my business partners over here on what needs to be done here before we open and all that kind of stuff. We already set a date, we've already gone public that we're going to open that day kind of thing, all that kind of stuff. So it was crazy. And the moment we went home with our new daughter, I was here like almost 24/7.
Yep.
Right? Because I had to be.
Yep.
We just opened this place. You can't burn down the moment we open this place. So again, it was crazy. Yeah.
So how does she hold that against you?
Probably in a few, but she knows. Look, she knows that I didn't plan Benzin to be open 2019 because as you guys heard, right, we had 2 other locations that happened, and those things happened over a year.
Yeah.
So Benzin was supposed to be open in 2018.
Yeah.
So it would have been well and done,
Established.
and, established by then, kind of thing. So in that sense, it's not something that I planned. But then I joke around. I always joke around. It's like, if we have the next kid, that means I'm going to have another cafe. So like, always got to line it up,
You escape daddy duties.
Yeah. But it's also just to line up the anniversaries, to line up the birthdays.
Yeah, make it easy. So, okay, when it came to when Harper was born, did that change you in any particular way? Like
I don't know.
You don't know?
I think it's not a self-assessment. I feel like it needs to be someone like assessing it.
Yeah.
But, man, she melted me, eh?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. From that day forward, it was just kind of like you just knew that everything would just be for that person. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look.
Easily, it was just kind of like I held her, and then I joke with my wife a lot. I was just like, no matter how many kids we have, she's gonna be my favorite. You know that, right?
Number one, yeah.
Like, and I'm the blunt kind of person. I'm like, I'll say to the other kids, she's my favorite.
It's funny you should talk about. So I got 3, right?
Yeah.
And Cadence takes it very literally that she's number 1.
Yeah.
So because she's the first, she wants to win at everything.
Yeah.
Right. And she'll always be like, no, I'm number 1.
Yeah.
And Harley's 2 and Eden's 3.
Yeah.
So no matter what, she always wants to win at everything. But when Cadence came out, like that was like, for me, I felt it was life changing. You know, you just sort of so emotional. I don't know. That's what happened for me, right?
But I think it's different. I think it's especially different when it comes to I don't have a son yet.
Yeah.
But maybe it's different when it comes to like a dad and a daughter, especially it's like the first daughter.
Yeah.
Have you always wanted like a son or a daughter? Like, was that in your head?
Yeah. So what happened was, so originally I was thinking, I wanted a son first. You can't really pick. Like
I think that's a big cliche thing to do, right? Like that's something that I don't know, maybe most only, not all, always think. It's also because of your hobbies, right? It's like you want to align your hobbies with your kids because you want to have fun with them.
Yeah.
And that's the same as me.
Yeah.
Right? But then I think that's why it's so different with daughters.
Yeah.
Because it's like the moment that your daughter comes into your arm, you kind of realize that, I don't know, it's like that life-changing thing where it's like, it just click. You're like, you know what?
It's primal.
This is...
Yeah. I feel like you have this really protective feeling
That's
of
right.
your daughter because...
Yeah.
And like, no words can describe it.
No.
Like, when I had my son, I had a very different feeling to him. And it wasn't like it's not that I love him any less.
No.
But you just feel like, I want him to be tough and
Yeah,
blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
yeah.
My wife, and she reminds me, she's like, remember he's 3, like, or he's 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he's still young, right? He's still trying to, and he's quite an emotional guy. Like he gets very upset about things. Whereas, Cadence wasn't like that. She was very different, like just very different personalities. But like when they were born, you have this real primal sort of emotion that comes out. And I think most people would have that sort of same sort of emotion that comes out, and you can't describe it. Like I just feel like it's just one of those things that once you've experienced it,
Yeah, you can't describe
right?
it. Like, and I get it, and I understand from your point of view, because like I always tell my wife, like I don't want to go on a walk with you because they go on walks every day to the park.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know, because I don't want to go to be in an environment where, because I know how ugly some kids can be.
Yeah.
Right. They're kids.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in an environment where like another kid like bullies Harper because I know I'll have no filter. Like,
what are you going to do if Harper's the bully though?
Nothing happened. But you know what I mean? Like you have that protective instinct straight away. Like I just know that I don't want to be in that situation because I might get ugly kind of thing. So yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah.
The other thing I like to always explore is because when you become a dad, I don't think anyone's ever really prepared for it, right? You can read as many books as you like, but it doesn't really make a difference, right?
We don't have the maternal instincts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we're not born with it. So it's kind of like, yeah.
So I guess, how's that sort of shaped you in terms of your parenting?
Whatever I do, I don't know how many noises go around in this cafe. I think whatever I do is always kind of in a way, a shape or form, reflecting on how my upbringing was, I guess. Like I still take my parents as a role model.
Yep.
But shape it to what I think is right.
Yep.
But yeah, again, like you said, man, like there's no books that can teach me, and there really is nothing that can prepare me for it, and you just get thrown into deep, especially for as a dad, you don't have that kind of maternal instinct, so can't even explain it. It's just more kind of like you just learn as you go.
Yeah.
And you find out who you are, I guess, as you go.
Yep. I feel like you make a lot of mistakes as you go along.
Of course.
But you don't realize, you don't actually recognize them as mistakes.
No.
You just, it's like, you know, you do things and then you might have a specific outcome that comes out of it, which might be the outcome that you want.
Yeah, yeah.
But then as the kids grow up, then you go, oh, is that really the outcome that I want? Because now it's sort of changed into something else.
Yeah, yeah. Hold on, just turn that off.
That's all right.
I'll turn it off.
All good. What is it? So what, you can still get a DoorDash order now?
Every day, just keep asking, are these still your hours? I'm like,
oh wow.
yes, I haven't changed it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't know. But yeah, it's changed me as a person.
Yep.
You can't really put it into words, but I know that I've realized that I can't be the guy that disciplines Harper.
Why's that? Oh, it's just too hard for you.
I just forgive everything
for
her. Anyway, it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, that was bad, but it was kind of cute though.
Yeah. I'm like that with certain things, but like the one thing that I'm trying to make sure that they don't do is lie to me.
Yep.
So I'm very harsh on the lying, but if it's, you know, if they admit what they've done wrong or whatever, then the punishment's not really as bad.
Yeah, for sure.
But like my kids have gotten to the stage where they'll try and blame each other for whatever's happened, and then it's like you're playing the inspector trying to work out who's actually done it, right? Who actually did the crime. So, yeah. But all right. Well, unless you got anything you want to ask me about, we can.
Not really sure.
All right. All good. So, how people can obviously find you at Benzin Cafe.
Benzin Cafe. We're pretty active on Instagram. That's probably the best way to kind of find out more about us.
Yep.
I do a lot of videos and stuff on Facebook and Instagram.
Yep.
And if anyone wants to get any videos done, it's called Monday Made. We do corporate, commercial, any really content creation really.
Yep.
Just for businesses, even for personal reasons.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then is it Monday Made for the weddings as well? Or is that
No, our weddings called Classic.
Classic
company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Classic photo and video. So,
Yep.
but yeah,
All right.
it's been really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure.
All right. Thanks everyone.
No worries.
Sorry, and we're back. Bonus segment.
No. I think like to touch. We were talking off mic, but I think to touch on that point, like, and from my own experience that we talk about, it's really true. Like, I guess in a way, like you don't have the success unless you have the people around you supporting you, or the right people around you that can motivate you, or even give you kind of a bit of a fuel or a kick in the butt kind of thing. So I think that's why families are really important. And ever since Harper was born as well, it's kind of like it changed my mind on a lot of things with like businesses and stuff like that. I think most people used to do business for, their own gain or pride, or maybe a feeling of being achieved something. And it just changed to kind of like, well, now I'm doing it for her. Doing it for the legacy. Legacy as in like, when I'm not here anymore, she has something kind of thing, right? And whatever future kids I have, they have something kind of thing. And I think that's a really strong kind of goal to have, because then you're making sure someone else is covered other than yourself. But to that point, like, and it's really funny because like the moment I became a dad, I actually found one of the best Facebook groups ever. And I don't know if it's somewhere else in Sydney, but there's a Facebook group called Hills District Dads. And every time I talk about them, like people that don't know, like I go to like commercial shoots and stuff, like I talk about like how, I'm part of this group called the Hills District Dad, and then like the whole title, a dad group, it's weird. It's weird. It's lame. It's daggy. Is whatever, right? But man, it's been one of the best groups I've ever been in. Like hands down, super supportive of the problems that some of the dads may have. But at the same time, just always having a solution in that group, whether it be family, business, personal, whatever. But at the same time, like the moment someone in that group, there's a lot of people in that group, so there's a lot of people that don't talk. But the moment someone in the group that talk opens a business or have a brand or have something that we can support, they just kind of hands down support it straight away. So something like that is also really cool because then they become also another support pillar in like your family life. Again, I don't know if it exists in any other like areas of Sydney or even if it's big or anything like that, but it's pretty big here. Like with Benzin, we had a charity night that I wanted to do, and I wanted to do to give back to the RFS because of the year that we've had. And I just reached out to that group, and we found heaps of RFS depots or whatever they're called, brigades that were part of the Hills District Dads. And it made it even better because I'm like, okay, now I'm going to support that brigade specifically, hold the charity night here, and all the proceeds go to that specific brigade. And the moment we created that, man, like 60, 75 Hills District Dad families came by just to support that brigade because we're all part of the same group. So it's pretty cool. I think that's like, again, like that goes on to who's around you to support you. And you support them back, obviously. But yeah.
No, I think that's something that, you know, it can be very lonely as well. You know, if you're, as a dad, like I don't think a lot of dad, and that's part of the reason why this came up is because I was saying how my wife, Ange, was saying that, you know, in my podcasts, you know, in the past, I typically didn't really go too much into the family and the relationship side of things with my guests. And, you know, she's like, oh, your podcast seems very focused on entrepreneurship and business and things like that. And that wasn't never the idea behind it. You know, the idea behind it was to try and draw out some of the stories that people have had from their life experiences, because everybody's story is their own story.
And it shapes them,
and it shapes them. But it also, those bits and pieces, those fragments can resonate with other people. And as a result of it, like somebody might listen to a podcast and go, you know what, that's very similar to the position where I'm feeling right now. And so if you can, you know, step back a bit and look at it from a bird's eye perspective and go, okay, well, this means that the potential for where I could go from here is here. Right. And I think, you know, when it comes to people starting businesses and things like that, it's so important that, you do it for the right reasons. You look at it from the perspective of what is the problem that you want to solve for yourself? Because if it solves a problem for you,
it might have solved it for someone else.
Solved it for someone else. So, when I started the podcast, it was like, I wanted to, like when I'm talking about legacy, right? Like the kids thing. I wanted to have something, so selfishly, you know, I've got this catalogue of things that my kids can one day listen to and listen back to, you know, what was Dad like at that point in his life and what was important to him and what were some of the influences that shaped him. Because they may, like, I could tell them things now, but in 30 years' time, they're not going to remember these things. Right? And, you know, we're not going to be around forever. And so part of that, you know, it wasn't just about sharing my story. It was to have guests on like yourself and share your story, because then one day, you know, when we're no longer here, our kids could always go back and if they Google it and they go and they remember, oh, you know, Dad was on this podcast once, and the catalogue's there for them to listen to and actually and see, you know. So these are the things that Dad, you know, was thinking about or had gone through at that particular stage in his life. It's like a time capsule.
And I think it's all, I actually think it's really good to talk about this kind of stuff as, even if you're not a dad, but as males. Because it's a different experience, right? And you can never say what it's like to be on the other side of that fence. But you can only say it from your own experience. And as a dad, it's a different experience because your struggles aren't really based on upbringing of a certain child. It's also not the struggle of knowing what to do in certain milestones of that child. It's not about caring for that child is your struggle. The struggles, I think for me anyway, for an experience, for the male experience, it's always been like the emotional or the mental struggle of providing, right? It's got nothing to do with the caring or the upbringing. It's just the providing part. And that's what I see a lot on the Facebook group. It's like, it's a really cool group because people can go in anonymously, and at the same time, people can help that anonymous person who's struggling mentally. And that mental struggle is always kind of revolve around the idea of providing for a family and not feeling secure that they can provide for that family.
There's pressure.
Or on the flip side, thinking that what they're doing is right, as in like working their ass off in a business or in a company, working so much, because in our kind of way of how our brain is connected is that the way we love for our family is to provide for them. Therefore, how do I provide? Make more money. Make more money by working more. But then on the flip side, you go home and you realize you're actually not home much. And that has a strain at home because why aren't you home enough? Kind of thing. And that's what I see on the Facebook group. And that's what I think is really good to talk about, because you don't notice that until someone tells you. Or until someone kind of poked you a bit. Kind of thing. Right? And knowing other people going through the same experience just kind of grounds you a bit, and also go, hey, maybe I should reach out to some people and see what they've done.
What the balancing act is.
That would have worked and what hasn't worked. So you wouldn't have to be in that position anymore. So I think it's really cool to kind of talk about it, because not many people do. And it's just different, you know. It's not the same struggle as on the other side. Not to say what's worse and what's better. But it's just different. So it's very hard to kind of figure your way out of it without the support that you need around you. For sure.
And that's the thing. It's like, you know, people often feel like, oh, I've got a stupid question, so they're shy to ask it.
That's
but if you're thinking about that particular thing, then chances are there are other people who are also thinking about it. And if everybody's too shy to ask the question, then nobody can actually learn from that experience.
Everyone will just be in the same cycle. For sure.
So, and I always think back to, you know, part of that equation when it comes to spending the balancing act between spending time at home and working and providing. You know, when my parents came to Australia, like, and your parents would probably be the same. If your dad was managing that many franchises and having that many stores, he's going to be a busy guy. Right? So for us, our childhoods were probably quite different to the childhood that we want for our children, because, you know, we got to experience not having our parents at home as much. Right? And so for me, I know that definitely influences how I want to raise my kids. I want to be more involved. So what I value in life is probably very different from what my parents valued. Right? And then it's like, and it's not to say that their way was wrong. It's to say that, and I always say this, is like, you know, the old quote about standing on the shoulders of giants. Like, we couldn't be this way without our parents having made the sacrifices that they made. Right? So how do we now take advantage of that blessing that our parents have bestowed to us to go further?
For sure.
And so I always think about that. Like, I think there is a real balancing act to it, and I don't think there's any there's no point working so much that you aren't involved in your children as they grow up, because all your kids want at the end of the day is time with you. They don't care about the money side of things. Like, you know, it's probably not the best thing if they're always asking for things and you're like, we can't afford it. But on the flip side, I think most kids just want to spend time with you.
But the biggest problem, that's what I said, like, is you know, if there's no one talking about it, no one knows. But because the biggest problem of it all is, it's not that dads don't want to be at home. It's because to a lot of males, I think their baseline, like, you know, their neutral position is to provide. Therefore, in any crossroad that you have to make a decision really quickly, they will always pick work. Without really going into it and thinking about, well, what are the outcomes of me choosing this road? They're not doing it intentionally. You get what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, and they're just doing it out of instincts.
And I think males, we don't talk about that.
No.
You know, if we internalize that kind of pressure and just go, well, that's a part of being the dad of the family. Right? We don't really think about it from the perspective of, okay, perhaps I need to talk about this with my wife, or explain, you know, I'm feeling, you know, this way, because it's almost like a sign of weakness. Right? We sort of view it as a sign of weakness. But the problem is when you internalize all those pressures, at some point, if you don't have a healthy outlet for them,
they
explode. Right?
Because, like I said, it's not intentional to do that, because I'm pretty sure if at any of those crossroads, someone else was to tell them, hey, I would much rather for you to be at home, they'll be at home, right? No one tells them. So they just kind of go, this, and this. And it's also because you see it from your dad, your own parents from when you were growing up. You're like, well, that's what he did, right? And we weren't that bad at all. We can't be that bad.
But I think the world's different now, right? Like I don't know. It's a really strange sort of feeling trying to navigate it, you know, because you try and think back on your own childhoods and go, okay, well, what did my parents do in that particular situation?
We're the generation that went through the most amount of changes in the world. In one, you know what I mean?
Sequence,
like, technology, everything progressed a lot faster within our generation. So everything changed a lot more, kind of thing, for sure.
All right. Well, I think that's a great way to end this. You know, and look, you know, if there is anyone listening out there that does need that sort of support or anything, feel free to reach out. because I think it's really important to have an outlet. And sometimes it's easier to tell a stranger your problems than to
Tell someone you know.
yeah. Right? Because
Yep.
sometimes people fear judgment.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
we shouldn't. But
No, for sure.
yeah. All right.
Thanks, Johnny.
Cool. Thank you.
Right.